Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
That's right, everybody. It's Deuce in the host chair today. Of course, the big news, Jeremiah Farms resigned this morning.
There was real conversation happening on your station last week about whether or not the Chiefs were a better dynasty than the Patriots. Mahomes or Brady, Kelsey or Gronk.
Correct, as of now.
And as of now, it's not close.
No, it is. Like, don't fall into the trap of listening to the bombast.
Yeah, we were at a bar with Barthy.
It's all coming together.
We watch the Super Bowl together every year. I know, it's adorable.
They did the kid and play dance after Mahomes got sacked.
When we make fun of Evan that he's like lying in bed and Jess is like, what are you thinking about? Like, this is like when Lane, like, what are you thinking about? I'm like, yeah. Mike Vrabel's preference for linebackers. Elle from Wisconsin chiming in here about my hosting. Mike, phones aren't working. Also, Mike keeps going to calls instead of emails. If you're waiting on the phones, do we go back to them?
I wouldn't. Do you ever get tired of that?
What?
Just whining all the time.
No.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
All right, welcome into another edition of Patriots Unfiltered. And that's right, guys, it's a kids show today, at least for the first half. We got Matisse in, we got Alex, Evan, myself, Paul and Fred doing vacation kind of stuff out there.
Deserved.
Nice. Well deserved, of course. Two of the hardest working guys we know. Fred. So if you want to call in and yell at us a little bit, or bring a little bit of that energy, we'd love to have it. But otherwise, we're well into the off season here, so we're gonna have a little bit of an off season show today. I think we're open for discussions. I don't know what are we gonna talk about today. We get Alex and Tease maybe can chime in a little bit on the Super Bowl, some of the commercials. Apparently, Alex already brought one up that I totally missed. So I'm glad you're paying attention.
You didn't watch
to
the
those.
commercials.
I didn't really watch them. I got to
It was hard for me too.
They announced them 2 weeks before the game. They're not special
right,
anymore.
They start
they do leak.
I think you need a Chiron on some of these commercials to let you know, like, this is a big budget one. Like this. Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess with Harrison Ford, I missed that one.
Yeah, the Jeep one with Harrison Ford.
I like that one. My favorite was the Seal one with the Mountain Dew.
Yeah, we talked about that one.
I missed that one.
Seal. That was my favorite.
My cousin Michelle wouldn't stop talking, so it was kind of hard.
Michelle
listens sometimes too, so hope she is today.
Some fun today for sure. We're gonna have Matt No Sock Smith in from the pre and post game show. We haven't heard from him since that big post game show we had. So check in with Matt here in the second hour as well, and some things going on, I would say, outside of the Patriots universe a little bit. Red Sox making a signing, so I know we got some Red Sox fans who are back on the bandwagon here.
We're back. The protest is over for Evan and I.
calling the rep today.
Right, is the rep? No, you're not even going to wait for the rep to call you?
No.
You're just going right in? We're back, baby.
I'm back.
One signing. Here we go.
Bregman, let's go.
The outdoor bar.
It's not even like 2016. We're still excited about it.
Well,
is he still an all-star?
I would no, but he's a good player.
Yeah.
And to make it a little bit Patriot focused, I think a lot of what the things the Red Sox have done this offseason is kind of like what the Commanders did for Jaden Daniels, which is just surround some of that young core with actual MLB talent, right? Like, guys that can actually play the role that they're being asked to play and have done it at a high level in baseball before. Bregman, Walker Buehler, Crochet, you sign these guys and then you hope that the Tristan Cassels and the Roman Anthonys and all these other players are the ones that give you a ceiling. And these guys are kind of giving you that floor. So I do think it is a little bit of Patriots ties, just the way they structured the contract, short term, but a lot of money, big money for Bregman. So there's some things that you could look at from it and say, well, if the Patriots did that and then, Drake May and Christian Gonzalez and the number 4 pick, Like, that's the ceiling, and the floor is Alex Bregman.
Did you think? So you say that. So let's get right into some Patriots stuff, because it just made me think. Like, does this Patriots team seem like the team that needs that? Let's bring in a veteran kind of guy. Like I'm thinking of Mark Recchi back with the Bruins playoff run. Not you still had Patrice Bergeron back then. Sorry, we're going around the horn here with all the Boston sports.
Crossing sports.
I think there's an element of unknown with this Patriots team and Mike Vrabel about. We talked a little bit about Juwan Bentley as, is he a perfect fit? Is, a linebacker? It seems like Vrabel would love that kind of guy, but such an unknown of what this roster is going to look like here in the next few weeks, what kind of changes they're going to make. And I think we all kind of agree that maybe there is an influx of some kind of guy who's going to set the tone a little bit as a veteran, which feels a little weird to say because you were holding on to, you still got guys like David Andrews around, who was part of great things here and has that pedigree. But at the same time, it still feels like a little bit more of a younger team now that maybe needs a little bit of an influx of veteran presence.
Yeah, I would agree. And, just to make it like a baseball football comparison, like to me, Alex Bregman is like if the Patriots signed like Chris Godwin or traded for Cooper Kupp. Like, is he at the peak of his powers anymore? Probably not. But he's won World Series. He's walked the walk. He knows what it takes. And, to your point, Deuce, like, do the Patriots need to go out and add those types of players this offseason? Like the Commanders added Bobby Wagner, who's just one of those types of guys, future Hall of Famer, but might not be at the peak of his powers anymore. So I do think we're going to see that with the Patriots. It might not be all they do, but I do think we're going to see some Vrabel circle the wagons type of guys, because the guys that have been here aren't his guys. Like, those aren't necessarily guys that are here to set his image and his culture. That's old regime players. So I do think we're going to see a turnover there.
And Vrabel really saw firsthand, he was part of those groups of guys that led the locker room, that policed itself. We've talked about it many times on this show. But that's what we really need to get back to for me. That was one of the biggest things we were missing last season, was that those veteran presences, especially in the receiver room.
Thank you. Along those lines, Otis, I got to give you a shout out because as we get into free agency now, Otis and I, we started within like a couple months of each other here, and I distinctly remember as we got to the spring, you hyping up T. Higgins. Like, I remember in the draft process, because before we even listened to Tease about anything to do with it, like, well, who's this guy? Like, the new guy, you're talking draft? Like, what are you talking about?
T.
Higgins. He'd be in the back corner, kind of around the corner from me. And I remember you talking about T. Higgins. And now T. Higgins is, looks like he very well could hit free agency. But I know he's been one of your guys going back to
I would love it.
Out.
I just think about all the people that I've said and we've missed on, like CeeDee Lamb, like Calvin Ridley. Like, there's a chance. Right your wrongs. We've seen with A.J. Brown, too. I know he just won, making some stuff said on Instagram. But just like we keep missing, there's always a chance to right your wrongs. Just get him. We have the money. Go get him.
Does he want to come? That's probably the question.
And I think weather like today isn't doing us any good.
Yeah, for those who don't care, which is probably anyone not here, but very, very messy, sloppy. But we're all here, and we all made it. And, we got to talk a little Patriots news because Jaquay Jackson re-signed with the team, Evan, and I know Tease and Alex probably zone out on that one, but
great touchdown in the preseason.
Everyone remembers that touchdown.
I saw it. I was like, when was this? It feels
Look
so
off
long
the safety,
ago.
rip it, Joe Milton.
So they're starting to make some moves, though, and we talked about Jeremiah Farms, kind of tongue in cheek, but not anything major money or anything like that. But they're, I know people have a lot of responses of like, well, this is what we're going to sign these guys. And I look at it as these guys who have been around, they understand the program. You have some degree of trust and knowledge of who these players are. And you're really thinking more about training camp and the depth and, giving players like this an opportunity to excel. Whereas I think, Jeremiah Farms got so much praise last year from Jerry Montgomery, the defensive line coach, of just being constantly in the building. And you hear that a lot with the Patriots over the years that, guys that the first one in, last one out kind of guys. But with Jeremiah Farms, it seemed legitimately like it. And we don't have to make this a Jeremiah Farms show, but, I will say when we talk about defensive scheme shifts and that kind of thing, it seems like maybe Jeremiah Farms might be a little better suited just to be a get-up-the-field kind of three-technique player, and maybe that suits him. Maybe he blossoms. It's not big money, but, same thing with Jaquay Jackson, where he's been here a little bit. They know who he is, at least personally. There's going to be, obviously, an offensive change, but I like that these moves are starting to happen. It's nothing that you need to – it's not T. Higgins yet. We're not talking about the big fish in free agency, but starting to take care of some of their own things in-house.
I think a big thing also is just depth. and the Patriots just didn't have that. This is a guy you're familiar with, and he's solid. So like let's build the depth a little, and you start with those kind of players.
Yeah, I love his attitude. I mean, that's the big thing, and you know what you're going to get out of him. He's going to come in and work his butt off. So, and you know, Jackson, I don't really remember a lot of him in camp, to be honest. Everyone put the clip up of him catching that touchdown in the preseason. It's like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, he had a nice last preseason audition there before that injury that he suffered. But with Jeremiah Farms, I do find it a little bit interesting that they're make a move like that. Not that it's big money, but it does sound like it was a contract that puts him in pretty good position to make the 2025 roster. And like, what background does Vrabel have with Jeremiah Farms? And you know, at what point does he pick, you know, a guy that maybe he had his eye on in free agency or the draft versus Jeremiah Farms to make the roster? So that tells me just a little bit, even though it's at the back end of the roster, that Elliott Wolf still has some say in the room of what's going on, because that's an Elliott Wolf player. That's a guy that was identified and found by the last front office regime. So that part of it was interesting to me. Was okay, well, you know, this is clearly somebody trumpeting Jeremiah Farms to Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel has zero background with this player. So it clearly is, you know, Elliott Wolf or the scouting department, you know, Patrick Stewart, Mac Rowe still here. Like, one of those people has a little bit of influence, probably Elliott, to make those types of moves.
Yeah, one more thing I want to bring up too, which I think happened the end of last week, so we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. But Brian Belichick and Mike Pellegrino officially moving on. It sounds like Brian's going to land down in UNC with his dad. Not all that surprising. I thought that would happen quick. And then Mike Pellegrino, unfortunately, I'm glad he got a job, but unfortunately sticking in the division and going up to Buffalo. But I'm just interested to see what the changes are. That secondary, the way that they were able to morph, you know, they always would say those two guys, like, we coach together, we're defensive backs, there's no difference between safeties, cornerbacks. The way that they worked in conjunction with each other, it does seem like a significant change and one of the few pieces that held over from the previous regime. So happy for those guys to move on, but also a little sad, like both of them, and thought they were both really good coaches.
Yeah, I hate that Mike Pellegrino went to Buffalo. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a bummer. I think that
Great for
the Bills
him.
got a really good coach there.
Kyrie Elam, let's get him on track.
Pellegrino's story is so cool too. Like the lacrosse background coming in, or like just building a career here. Like you can't imagine that was like his dream job, right? Like,
no.
It kind of seems like it just felt.
No, I know. And I remember when I first started here and we had like our first coach availability, and I thought I had this like doozy of a question. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to go up and ask him about lacrosse. And he, you know, Mike, it was like, he's like, yeah, I did. I've been asked this 5,000 times. Like, you know, like, congratulations. But really, Mike was one of one of my favorite coaches on the staff.
Great guy.
Opportunity when we were up in Green Bay, we were waiting for practice to kind of get going during joint practices, and he just was hanging out, chatting with us, talking, you know, not football, just real life kind of stuff. So I just one of my favorites on the staff, and now he's moving on. So
very active too. You don't see a lot of the coaches getting down and dirty and like running with the players a lot. So he's always up to speed with them. So.
The MIDI, can run, right?
Yeah, I the Dave Petromala connection there between Belichick and Dave Petromala, who used to coach Johns Hopkins lacrosse, and Pellegrino played for Petromala, and he was kind of like a lacrosse coaching legend. He's won like a bunch of national championships and stuff like that. So he had a relationship with Bill, and that's sort of how Bill stumbled upon Mike Pellegrino down at Johns Hopkins. And I was talking to some people in Buffalo about him last week, and they just are really excited about him potentially changing up their defense a little bit. I think people in Buffalo believe their defense got a little predictable. You know, under Sean McDermott, it's been that cover 2 Carolina system for a very long time. It's a good system, but I think they want to see a little bit more man coverage, a little bit more aggressiveness, you know, with the way they blitz and things like that. And they're hoping that a guy like Pellegrino with the Belichick background can bring some of those elements to it. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens, or if Pellegrino coaches more of his own team, or if they do kind of morph a little bit in his image to more man-to-man. So great coach, and it's a tough one. It's a tough one to lose him in the division. You never like to see that. Like, if he all of a sudden turns Kyrie Elam into like what he was supposed to be coming out of the first round, then I'm gonna be mad at him. I'm gonna go up to him and be like, "What the heck, man?"
I know there's a few coaches that come through that just have been so consistent and always seem to have a really good player within his position group, guys that always had good seasons. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, bless you, Alex.
Thank you.
Stephon Gilmore's development, of course, that's a big part of J.C. Jackson's development was a big part of it. And then, of course, Christian Gonzalez being able to come in as a rookie, do a great job. So, Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hey, what can you do? That's the league, and just happy those guys have jobs. I think they're lucky to be stable here for a while. But it doesn't sound like Brian Belichick's the only former Patriot going down there. It sounds like LeGarrette Blount, his son, is now going to UNC, or I guess he has an offer, I believe was exactly what it was.
Offer.
Yeah.
And I feel old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Patricia going to Ohio State.
And Matt, I was
as
going to bring that one up
defensive
too.
coordinator. That one's interesting. Ohio State just seems to. They're like a mercenary school right now for coordinators. Just whatever coordinator, big name coordinator they can get their hand on for a year or two to coach up that side of the ball. You know, Chip Kelly's there for like a cup of coffee, wins a national championship, and then bounces right back to the NFL. So that looks like what Patricia's trying to do. You know, get his reputation up by having a good year with Ohio State. It's a good school to catch on to. Like, you're gonna have plenty of talent, so you're gonna have a talent advantage almost every single week you roll out there. So.
Well, I'll have a clip later in the show, maybe in the second hour, and No Socks gets on here. But spoke with Matt Patricia on the 2004 podcast that I did. So we're going to play a clip from him in the second hour with No Socks when he comes in. It's also No Socks does the Pats from the Past podcast, which if you guys haven't listened to the Pats from the Past podcast, I mean, I'm not sure what episode. Matty, how many episodes? Do you know off the top of your head how many episodes of Pats from the Past? He's given me the 1 second
one
finger.
was great.
But they're awesome. They're all available wherever your podcasts are. I poached a bunch of stuff from their interviews from Corey Dillon.
We're at 50 episodes.
50 episodes with just a wide range. Gronk was a recent one, as Matisse pointed out, that was excellent. Matt has been here since the 90s, so I mean he knows everything there is to know about this Patriots team. Wait, I might miss. We have to ask him when he got here. It might have been a little bit after the 90s. I get confused with Paul. But he's been around here. He's been in sports forever, and he knows everything there is to know about those old Patriots teams. So talk about that a little bit later, and that is coming out next week. So Monday, the first episode will drop. Maddie just finished up editing that one, so excited to share that with Patriot fans coming up next week. And, of course, give us a call. TPX hotline, 855-PATS-500. Like we said, everything's on the table today. We kind of blasted through all the Patriots news in the first 15 minutes.
Rodgers official,
I had that on my list too, Tease. All right, let's go. Aaron Rodgers
got a list.
Officially announced of he's not returning. They haven't. I don't think they've done the transaction yet, but they said get out of here.
Yeah. Is it weird to you guys? Me and Tamara were talking about this, that the Jets posted that he's not coming.
Will not be returning. Like it's a Sam Darnold flex. You know that.
It's like, are you trying to fish for engage? Like, what are you doing here? Why are you posting?
I don't know if that's the right move. I get it, but
also them flying him out just to tell him. And
did they really?
But he actually he didn't have that bad. He put up similar numbers to Mahomes, who was in the Super Bowl. I know there's a lot of off-field stuff, but I don't know what your answer is.
It sounded like they offered him a deal that they probably knew he wasn't going to take, but it was like a stripped down, media availability, like no Pat McAfee, I think was something that...
Show up to workouts.
Yeah, I think Diana Rossini reported that they wanted him to stop doing Pat McAfee during the season. So, he was going to have to basically, play ball with Aaron Glenn and follow the rules a little bit more strictly. And they weren't going to be as, married to him in terms of all their decisions. And, we're going to get Alan Lazard and we're going to get Devontae Adams and we're going to do all these things just to appease Aaron Rodgers. It sounded like they wanted to kind of take the team back a little bit from Aaron Rodgers, and it didn't seem like that was going to be possible with them continuing on together. Kind of sounds a little bit like Bill and the Patriots, to be honest with you, where you can't really pull it back. Once it's given to them, that kind of power, it was hard to find a middle ground to pull it back. But I find it interesting with the Jets, where do they go at quarterback? Mm-hmm. There's not a ton of options. You're not bringing back Sam Darnold. Yeah. So, there's not a ton of options.
Joe Milton for Garrett Wilson.
In free agency.
Who says no?
Or the veteran market, or the draft this year. So this could be kind of a bridge year for the Jets at quarterback. And that'll be interesting to see how New York handles that, how the media and everything
If you told
it.
us, I just remember our conversations we had on the show right around when he signed with the Jets. If you told me 2 years ago it was going to play out how it did.
If you told me him running out with
you
the flag.
Said, sounds exactly right.
Well, the Jets are going to jet, but... It just felt a little different. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was wary of it.
I feel like Evan was very skeptical.
I was skeptical of it working out
right
at the level
but
that
I don't
everybody
think
was.
It would blow up in their face like it did.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that they were going to be a complete non-factor. A lot of people were picking them to make the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl out of the AFC, and I was like, let's calm down.
I mean, it's 5 years of a pretty good defense wasted.
Yeah, they took a step back
young
last year
talent
on
too.
defense.
On offense.
I'm just starting to like that. That's a part of it for the Jets with me. Like, maybe we're overrating their roster just a little bit. Like, the team doesn't win. So at the end of the day, we can blame it on the coaching. We can blame it on the quarterback. They keep changing both things, right? They keep revolving through both things, and the roster doesn't win. So, like, I get that they have some, like, top-end talent. You know, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. Like, those are good players, Breece Hall. But I don't know. Maybe there's more holes on that roster than they give people think. Because every time we talk about the Jets, I feel like everybody's always like, that roster is amazing. I'm like, okay, how many games did they win?
Yeah.
They won 5. And it's like, at some point you have to look in the mirror and say, you know, are we overrating our team a little bit? It does feel like that a little bit to me.
I mean, do you think that this is now? I think Adams a free agent, or
he's under contract, but all the reporting is that there's no way he's coming back.
Yeah, they're
going to
like de-Rogerify the roster now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just keep going back to what Mike Vrabel said when we first heard from him, where we will have to be able to take advantage of bad football first. And if the Jets are taking a step back, certainly if they have a rookie quarterback or an unproven quarterback, it would give you some pause that maybe the Patriots can be back in the mix with them. I know we split with them last year, but and the year before, right? That was when they finally broke the streak. So maybe an opportunity there for the Patriots. Where does Rodgers land? He's not done, is he?
I think
Raiders.
That's the only thing I can think of. A lot of players don't even.
It's where everybody goes to die.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the only reason he retired is because he hit 500 passing touchdowns. Like, he was stuck at 499 for a while, and I think just with him that would bother him a lot.
Yeah.
So now I just don't know. Raiders.
Well, it feels like it's not his terms, right? Like, if he goes out now, it doesn't feel entirely like it's his choice, and I think that would kind of bug him. Like, and I watched some of that documentary. I don't know if you guys watched it, the one that came out, I guess it was last year, about behind the scenes of him, and it seemed like they were setting out to make a documentary about the season, and then it became a documentary about him dealing with the injury. But from what I saw of him, it seems like he wants to write his own last chapter. He doesn't want to have it written for him. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't catch on somewhere, but I don't know what the Jets do either.
There's too many quarterback-needy teams, and there's not enough quarterbacks available this offseason. Right. So whether it's the Raiders, the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, like the Giants, like there's so many quarterback-needy teams, and it's not a good year for quarterbacks in the draft. So to do what the Jets tried to do and hit, strike lightning in a bottle, 1 year of Aaron Rodgers, and if it works and he's an MVP caliber player, then maybe you're a relevant team. I think that there's worse things to do in a lot of ways for these teams that are desperate for quarterbacks in a year that doesn't have a ton of quarterbacks in the draft. Like, maybe now you draft a guy on day 2 that has some upside, and you have him train under Aaron Rodgers, and maybe you hand the keys to him in 2026 if it ends up working out. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for a team like the Raiders or one of those teams picking in the top 3 to opt to go with Aaron Rodgers over going with Shedeur Sanders at 2 overall. Like, that's going to be a reach on a player like that. So I think there could be a market for him just for that.
I just got just a quick side question. Cam Ward, trade up? Is he gonna get overdrafted? Cam Ward, I think that's like maybe one of the big questions for the Patriots in this draft. Can someone take Cam Ward in those top 3 picks, or trade up to take him in those top 3 picks?
This QB draft reminds me of the Kenny Pickett draft, which is silly now because he just won a Super Bowl. But it's just like I think this. No, but
he watched his team win.
But it just like it just seems like this is a draft that could get a GM in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And you're just stuck with another mid quarterback, and especially with, I think, next year's draft, there's some better prospects out there. So do you really want to risk it?
Well, this is when ownership, I feel like, gets in the way of football sometimes in the NFL, where the owner comes to the general manager and is like, we need a quarterback, and it needs to be a splash. Like, we can't just go out there and sign Gardner Minshew or something like that. Like, we need to actually make a move here at quarterback to appease the owner, and then you end up overdrafting somebody as a result. I think Cam Ward's more toolsy than Shedeur Sanders. The ball jumps out of his hand. He's got a good arm, and he's got some athleticism. But, just like we talk about the receivers in this draft, like, where would Cam Ward go last year? Probably somewhere in that, like, Bo Nix territory, like maybe quarterback 4, quarterback 5, like somewhere around there. And that you have to factor that in. Like, you don't just reach on players like that, and that's not good business. So you have to factor that in.
Maybe seeing how things played out with like Darnold going to Minnesota this year and Baker Mayfield kind of catching on.
Yep.
Like maybe that'll help teams kind of see like, you know what, maybe we can just bring in a guy that's bounced around and is a vet and
Justin
then just
Fields.
go from there.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Sure.
I think like I would
that's gonna
maybe
happen a
take
lot.
Justin Fields and then get a better other prospect. And
Right.
See if it doesn't work, you're bad next year. You get a better quarterback.
I think that's going to be a lot of teams, especially those teams at the top of the draft this year, are going to be thinking that exact same thing of, can we get the next Baker Mayfield? Can we get the next Sam Darnold? Maybe even Sam Darnold, who's going to be a free agent.
Sam Darnold.
And
He'll fold in the playoffs, but he got you there.
Right. But some of these teams are just looking for respectability, right?
Yeah.
You know, and just being relevant and being
And the
competitive.
Vikings had that this year all
Yeah.
season, and they
Great
didn't.
energy. I mean, there was a buzz about the Vikings.
Like if
you know?
you're the Browns and you could get Travis Hunter and Justin Fields, I think I would take that over developing Cam Ward or Shador.
Yeah.
Right.
Deshaun Watson.
Agreed.
What's happening with him, man?
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that we're always such prisoner to what happened the last season. And so when you get into the month of February, everyone always looks back at what happened, who won the Super Bowl, who had impressive years. And, you know, like 2 or 3 years ago, if we had been like, well, why don't the Patriots just get Sam Darnold? Like, because that wasn't the narrative that offseason, everyone was like, he sucks. Like Baker Mayfield, he sucks, you know, like. But now that those guys have actually had some success where they've, you know, used the experience that they've had in other places. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, when we watched Baker Mayfield out there on the practice fields with the Panthers,
Carolina,
I was like, that guy is done.
They were both in Carolina.
They're
that
both
year.
awful.
And not even to mention when, I know, right?
Yeah.
Not even, maybe that's the secret. You got to go to Carolina for a year.
Get
not
out
even
of
that, but when
Carolina.
Baker Mayfield was here with the Browns that one year, I was like, this guy doesn't even want to play anymore. I don't know who was worse, him or Jarvis Landry. Like both those guys, I'm like, these guys were good at one point. So it's funny how that's how the narratives go. And, you know, that's what we're all talking about with the Eagles now. And I mean, maybe and this might be wrong. This is where we need Paul. When I throw something out there and I'm like, I might be wrong about this, and he'll always call me out when I am wrong. But like, are the Eagles is the first time in a while, maybe not, that they're just the overall most talented team across the board won the Super Bowl? Like, I generally would say that doesn't happen. Like, it's always kind of the team that gets hot, and the team that's got the most front to back talent overall doesn't usually win the Super Bowl. But I like, in my mind, and again, I wish Paul was here to be like, well, in 2019, Deuce, you're forgetting this. Like, I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Of course, the Rams were pretty talented back a couple years ago. But I feel like this is one of those ones where they kind of did it the right way. You have examples of everything. You have a A.J. Brown trade. You've got a highly drafted wide receiver. You got kind of a quarterback you didn't take too high, and you kind of developed a little bit. So maybe that's where the difference is.
I would say yes, aside from Lions, if they were healthy. I think they just got bit by the injury bug and they couldn't overcome it at the end. But
yeah, I mean, some of those Chiefs teams, like the Tyreek Hill Chiefs teams, were loaded, you know, and those teams that were successful. And a lot of the time, though, and this was sort of why I picked Kansas City in the Super Bowl, is that, you know, a lot of these Super Bowls come down to one-score games late in the fourth quarter, and if you don't have the quarterback that can put the team on his back and do it, and my Niners keep losing in the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes because it's a one-score game, you know, in overtime or in the fourth quarter,
rip your heart
and
out.
then he just makes more plays than Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo, and I felt that was going to be potentially the way it went for Philly, but their talent just completely dominated. And they ran away from Kansas City.
The game would have been interesting if D-Hop caught that pass on the slant and like if he ran that in for the touchdown.
Yeah.
I think that maybe could have changed it. But other than that, I think it was a wash.
Speaking of the Super Bowl, I have to ask
Nope.
the president of the Drake fan club, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you doing, my friend? Like, how are you doing?
His album drops in
Tomorrow,
in 12
right?
hours.
Is
and
he
don't listen.
responding?
Don't
Is he
listen.
responding?
Don't listen.
If a tree falls in the forest,
Loverboy
does anybody
coming in
hear it?
hot on
listen.
Valentine's Day.
Listen, it wasn't that great. He like out of all his songs, he has some good songs. He didn't play like any of his good ones.
That's true. He did.
Like,
I mean, I wouldn't say he
it was
played
all
any
about
of
Drake.
any of his good ones, but we talked about the set list on Tuesday. It
Like-
could have been better. It could have been better.
Like, listen, you could get into the whole ins and outs of the beef. Like, I just didn't think it was good. Take beef aside. Like, he has some very good songs, and he didn't play them.
That's true. But 133 million people watched your boy.
Yeah,
get
but then
embarrassed.
wasn't it more people last year? I don't know. The numbers are all screwed.
No,
It's
no,
20
no.
versus 1 in the industry.
I didn't know people like Tease existed. Like, I thought people either just didn't get it or
He's
they
the
don't get it,
only
but now
person
he's like
that
the
I
Drake
know.
guy.
It
That's
wasn't
he's like
the
on
only
that
person I
side
know
of-
that
I fell
supports
asleep,
Drake.
actually. but
Honestly, based on some of the TikTok videos I saw in the stands, I think some of the fans did at the Super Bowl too.
I don't know, it just wasn't it.
Yeah,
I've even had some Kendrick fans.
Settlers
like,
could have been
good.
better. I was disappointed in the moment. I was like, where's my OG songs here?
I just think you got to bring back pop stars and rock bands and
like a medley where it's a few different kind of
I
people.
like
out of the
best.
past 5, this was the worst one.
I couldn't even
The
start to
Weeknd
name
was
you.
pretty bad.
Oh, yeah, that one was bad.
The Weeknd was pretty bad.
All I remember is Lady Gaga jumping off the roof for one of the Patriots.
I was in
Katy
shambles
Perry
for
and
that
her
one.
what
And
were they, the
Right,
dancing
right,
sharks,
right.
stuff like
I
that.
need funny
Beyonce
mistakes.
was amazing.
It
This
was
is probably
Coldplay.
almost 10 years
Beyonce
ago
took it
now.
over.
Was it really?
It was
I don't
Coldplay, and then
remember
Beyonce and
anymore.
Bruno Mars took it over, and then Coldplay was upset, and they like butted
Is
back.
that why
and-
Coldplay had 2 Super Bowls
I
within
think
like
so.
a couple
Yeah.
years?
Oh, greatest halftime show was 2 years ago. Eminem.
Honestly,
Matt.
the
Thank you,
one
Matt.
with all the rappers like
So
was
that, but that's like
phenomenal.
Deuce's point. Like Dr. Dre is obviously a producer, so
Yeah.
he put together like a whole production of
And you just had a
multiple
lineup.
artists.
Yeah.
I think Drake would have put on a better show. It would have been a way better show. He has better
I
songs.
think if Kendrick just brought Lil
Add
Wayne
more
in,
kids.
It should have just been Lil
it should have
Wayne.
been Lil Wayne. You can't like it was in New Orleans.
You can't have
that
the kids
was,
watch though if Drake's on there. You know, you gotta hide them.
I'm glad we're getting this out of the way without Fred and Paul here. I feel like they'd be even more clueless than I. Actually, I take that back. I'm more clueless than them with this, especially Paul. He knows this a little.
Well, there's an email in there actually from yesterday that I was in the moment I was very upset about, so I didn't even read it live on Catch 22, where the emailer claimed that Paul knows more about Kendrick than I do, and that was
Whoa.
like I was like, wait a second here, like Paul, I love Paul. But he will openly admit that that is not his slant. So.
Yeah, well, he like we said, he drives with his kids, and his kids listen, so he picks it
Yeah.
up by osmosis a little bit. And my kids aren't quite there yet, so I know nothing. I know nothing, but I'm learning. I'm
I had to
make me a
Matisse
mixtape. Do you guys still make mixtapes for people? Is that a thing?
Burn-
I
burn a
found-
CD.
Are you
Playlist?
shitting
I
me?
found a
I've asked
CD.
people upstairs if they know what Burn a CD is.
Burn
Like
a
Chris
CD.
Cassidy doesn't know.
I found a burned CD recently, and it was awesome.
Yeah. So one of the part of the email too was Section 80, which is Kendrick's first album. Real Kendrick fans consider it a mixtape
All 12 of them.
because it was free. It was a free download on DatPiff when it was
DatPiff.com.
originally released back in
Those
the
were
day.
the days.
Yeah. And then once it blew up, they put it on iTunes and Spotify and all those places. But technically, it's a studio album, but it's definitely a mixtape.
But there was nothing from that. Nothing from Good Kid,
Yeah.
Mad City. Like, Swimming
Don't Kill
Pools
My
is right
Vibe.
there for you. Don't
Yeah.
Kill My Vibe. That's probably my favorite one. Money Trees, and like I'm the type of Kendrick fan that like I would want to see like Ronald Reagan era or like a crazy
Like the 80s,
deep
you mean, or
cut
is that
song
a-
like
that's a
that.
thing?
Yeah, exactly. Just,
You brought up Serena.
but
you
it
brought
was
out his
just all
ex-girlfriend.
the recent album.
Yeah, I think he was trying to promote his tour. That's
Yeah, but
coming
that's
up.
not what a Super Bowl spot's for.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
agree. No, there could have been.
Do that at Gillette this summer.
Nobody will be there, so
It literally is already sold out, Matisse.
after that, we'll see.
Well, hey, Patriots fans,
It's gonna be
if
fun.
you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And, of course, it's easy to drink. It's easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Bud Light will also be sponsoring our draft countdown show, which will be starting
Nice.
live from Indianapolis in 2 weeks. And I know the NFL just released the full list of all the prospects, and Evan is, of course, digging on it. I've been jumping in, too. And we'll get Tease on there. I know we got you and Chris Cassel, you would point out. You guys did the Madden sim this year.
Yeah.
A nice addition to our video content. What was it like this year for you jumping into doing the Madden sims? It was a lot of fun.
It was awesome. I think week 1 was the best just because we were 1 point off. But it's tough when the team starts
Chasing that high ever since.
Yeah, it's just tough when the team's like not doing that well, and like those last couple weeks were a grind. But it's always fun, and we have some surprises for next year. So
Yeah.
Nice.
keep it going.
I thought the
But
great thing was when you guys did the throwback to the 2005 Madden, which I actually played a little bit myself. That one, I mean, I think,
04,
yeah,
05.
it was
04, 05,
05 is the best Madden of all time.
So
but,
which one's the one with Michael Vick on the cover?
04.
That's 04. So
But
that,
05 brought in the hit stick. That was the best one.
okay. The only thing I didn't like is when Madden brought in the QB vision. Remember
Yeah,
that?
that was 06 or 07.
Didn't like that. Didn't care for it.
No, 05 was great, and it's funny because I remember playing that as a kid, and I would get up to like 2025.
That's what I was just gonna say, right? Like that was like I would always sim seasons, and I would have like the 2025 Patriots that would all be filled with players that did not even exist, and then I draft somebody, then he'd be like, whatever, like a 99 rating. I'd trade him for another first round pick, and just the cycle continues. Was it fun? I don't know. I was blowing teams out left and right,
fun.
but
it was cool though because like
stats.
Drake May started off as a 70 something. He's just like progressing because it live updates throughout the season, and then like he's all of a sudden 89 speed. He's tugging and running. So
that's what happens. You get one run.
I always remember that like playing Madden, and then like Brady would retire, and you'd be like, no.
Yeah,
like,
it'd be after every year, and it started doing that in like 2012, and then it played 10 plus more years.
Yeah, it would always be like, hey coach, and he would like come into like this Brady video game version. Would be
then
like,
you just find another 99 QB somewhere, so some random guy, right?
The toughest
thing
with Peyton Manning in the 05 one is that they would always have him doing his cadence and audibling, so it was like the longest sim ever because he's taking 30 seconds every play.
The funny thing was I would come into like, I think it was maybe you guys shot it before we did do the preview in here, and the guys would be doing the Madden sim in here, and you guys were just watching it happen as it did. There were so many crazy finishes.
We did it one take every single time, so tried to keep it as true as possible, but I'm excited for Madden 26.
Did people accuse you guys of like rigging it?
All the time. All the time. Yeah. But we kept it one take every time.
Just like the Chiefs.
The only time we would do two, it was like a last second QB change, which happened a couple times, but other than that.
What was the final record of the Madden sim Patriots?
8-9, I think.
8-9. Yeah. So there you go.
Much better.
How many wins do they have? 8 or 9. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully this year. Let's jump over to the TPX hotline. Our phones were a little wonky last week, but we think we've got them fixed. And Matt's giving me double.
The best
double
was
thumbs
listening
up.
in because you're like, "Hello, Patty, you there?" And you can hear Patty.
I know, it sounded like Patty was getting held up at gunpoint, like you heard some guy like yelling at. I don't know what was going on with that one, but let's jump up there to our neighbors in the north, Sean in Vancouver. Hey, Sean, congrats on a nice win by your team Canada. I don't know if you watched that one last night with the Nations tournament? Foreign Nations tournament. Hey, Sean.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm not a hockey guy. I grew up in Montreal, and I had to leave because I don't speak French or play hockey, so they kicked me out. But
so you're the one.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about Super Bowl. Just off the bat, my favorite commercial was the Duracell one. I just love that line about the roast. I thought was really funny. But on to what the Patriot takeaways from this game. The main thing I took away was the trenches. I mean, Mahomes had a bad game. He even like with no pressure, he made mistakes. He threw an interception he had time in the pocket but I think like really like even from early in the game, he had like happy feet. He's dancing around because of that 4-man pressure or even 3-man pressure. Like they kept like for the first 3 quarters, the Eagles got I think around 46% pressure rate, and that just got to him, and that was a big thing. And on the other side of the ball, the Chiefs sold out to stop Barkley, and that's why the Hurts looked pretty good. You took taking advantage of single coverage both times against Watson, who looked good in the previous games when they played the Bills and the Texans. But in that game, he's got no help, and even Dotson is beating him deep. So that's the thing when you can win and have those monster, just great players on the trenches, like on the offensive line and defensive line. That just makes all the difference in the world. And I think that's what the Patriots should take away from this is, hey, you know what? We really need to focus. We need to get some pass rush. We need to get a nose tackle. We need to get tackles that can play and maybe a guard and just beef up that and protect Drake May and make sure that quarterbacks are not comfortable. So that's my takeaway. I'll let you guys comment on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. I guess for me, like the one thing is, I feel like Kansas City has tried a lot to get their offensive line in shape, and they have a lot of really good pieces. I mean, Creed Humphrey and Joe Thuney and Trey Smith, really well respected, and the tackle position's just been a problem for them. And injuries have hurt, but they've tried to draft. They've drafted guys that we like.
Yeah, and so taking our guys.
It's like as much as and I totally get Sean's point, but at the same time, it's like even the best laid plans, there's no guarantee that it's going to carry you through 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, and that's a problem for them. And if they had played better, would we still be saying the same thing about, Philly's defensive line? I mean, the Patriots in 07 had a pretty good offensive line too with, Logan Mankins and Matt Light and guys that we all believed in. And then they got to the Super Bowl and they just didn't have it that day. I mean, I know one of them, Logan Mankins, had an ACL tear, which God bless him. But, I get what he's saying. I just tie it back to we always kind of overreact to what exactly happened in one specific game. And I respect the hell out of Philly's defensive front. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And a lot of what Philly did on the offensive line, it goes back to coaching too. Jeff Stoutland's one of the best offensive line coaches maybe of all time. Not because that guy coached here, but he's in the conversation. He's on the Mount Rushmore, and he takes a guy like Jordan Mailata, who's a rugby player that gets drafted on like the 7th round, and he turns him into one of the best left tackles in football. He takes Mekhi Becton, turns him into a guard, and all of a sudden he's like a really good guard for Philly last year. So, to your point, like drafting and developing talent on the roster is such a big part of this whole conversation. And Kansas City, they draft Kingsley Sumatia and Wanya Morris and like all these other guys, and they just haven't hit. They haven't been able to hit at that position. So it's one thing to. It's the obvious takeaway is that the trenches are why Philly is dominant, but to build what they built is easier said than done. It's so hard. I mean, like the Patriots, I think a lot of us would say offensive line, offensive tackle is the biggest priority this offseason. You got to figure out a way to get that right. And I think Kansas City and probably a number of other teams are saying the exact same thing. So all these guys are going to have so much competition. It's just, it's so hard. I mean, I know you have a rant, Evan, about any tackle that comes in the combine, he's probably a guard. I mean, every single one is probably a guard. Every single one. Like you're reading, like Kelvin Banks is now probably a guard. Like he's gonna have like 35-inch arms, and he's gonna be a guard. But that, to your point of a lot of teams are looking for tackle play. Like this is part of the reason why I'm seriously considering Will Campbell at 4, because when you get back to 38, like all the guys that people think might be there, like I don't know if they're gonna be there. Like Josh Simmons, Josh Connolly,
quarterbacks,
Ariante Ursary. Like these guys could all get drafted very easily at the end of the first round by all of these teams that are just looking for tackles all over the place. Kansas City, San Francisco, go down the list. And are these guys going to fly off the board? Is a tackle at 38 going to be a player that can step in and play right away? Like I have serious doubts that that's going to be the case. And now you're talking about trading back up or like trying to get creative and trying to split the atom at a position that I feel like you've been doing that for years at this point, of like trying to thread the needle at tackle instead of just addressing it head on. It's like overvaluing the quarterback position. Do we start overvaluing tackles a little bit when you just say, look, it's maybe we're overdrafting this guy a little bit, but
supply and demand.
It's so vital. This is low supply.
Yeah.
Demand is
high
super
demand,
high. We
no
have a
supply.
chance at this guy. I think this is one case though where I'd really like to get one answer in free agency. One answer in free agency, not have to go into the draft being like, we got a big fat hole at left tackle and we need Will Campbell or whoever to fill it, and we might get screwed if we don't. So it's great debate. We'll have plenty of talk for it, and fortunately, I don't think we'll see the offensive linemen at the combine, but plenty of attention going to them. Let's go back to the phones again. John, L.A., longtime listener. Hey, John, thanks for calling in.
Hey, Duke, how's it going?
Good.
Good. I have a couple of quick draft things that are oddly specific that I just thought it might, spur some conversation. If the Patriots were to trade out of the top 15 and select a non-lineman in round 1, who do you guys take? I like Luther Burden.
Thanks, John. So if non-lineman, I look at those tight ends. Like, if you're not going to go with an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, like those two guys to me are the best playmakers in the draft, outside of Travis Hunter if he's going to play receiver, which we can talk about. The combine invites listed him as a defensive back, so at least the NFL is trying to push him onto the defense side of the ball. But I would look at those tight ends. I like Luther Burden a lot too. He's my kind of guy, kind of like Zay Flowers-ish, explosive player, good with the ball in his hands, gets open.
Definitely the type of receiver I tend to gravitate towards. I just wonder if he's going to be caught in that like no man's land between 4 and 38, somewhere early 20s, late teens. And it's like, how do you really get your hands on that player in the right range of the draft? So I anticipate a lot of those guys, similar to the class a couple years ago with JSN and Flowers and Addison and Quentin Johnson all kind of going in a run. I would think that, Luther Burden, Ibuka, Matthew Golden, like those guys I would anticipate are all going to kind of go in the 20s and fly off the board there. So you're going to have to position yourself to get him. But I do like Luther Burden a lot.
I think Travis Hunter, but like Deuce said, it just depends what you do in free agency. Like if you're able to get a receiver, like then let's change the strategy there. So it all just depends what you do.
Yeah, I'd throw Walker and Williams from Georgia in the mix a little bit. I mean, I just think those Georgia guys up front, and you got big needs on defense. I could see. I mean, I think it said it Tuesday. I mean, not that it's going to happen, but you could see them literally plugging those two guys into the starting lineup immediately in two positions. So, but yeah, a lot to consider there on the draft. Of course, that's what we'll be doing for the next few months. Let's head up to Portland. I believe it's maybe out to Portland, Oregon, maybe up north to Portland, Maine, to Justin. Hey, Justin.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is actually Chester in Portland, long-time caller.
All right.
Wanted to chime in. Nice job holding things down without the old guys in the booth today.
Doing our best.
Can't imagine what's on their mind if they happen to listen back and hear about Madden spins and halftime shows. Boy, this show sure has evolved. Actually ran into Fred when he was here in Arizona, and we're talking about trying to make the show younger, and clearly we're making strides there. But anyway,
some more than others.
A couple things have been on my mind. Deuce, you were absolutely spot on with Cooper DeJean. What a talent! This great player. When he made that pick six, I thought he right away. I was like, man, Deuce called that all the way back in the draft time. Couple things on my mind that's kind of aggravating me. This Vinatieri discussion with Pat's Nation. There's so many fans that are just appalled with him not getting in first ballot. And, I feel like the guys that got in, for the most part, were pretty deserving. I have no doubt he'll get back in, but, it's just I had to deal with a lot of argument back and forth as to, that taking place. And I feel like, kickers, they play a fraction of the snaps of some of these other guys. And, he'll have his due, but, I think we need to pump the brakes on, being appalled on him not getting in on first ballot, first run. The second thing is this Brady Mahomes GOAT conversation. Kind of surprised at how insecure Pat's Nation is about the ammunition that was really fed into that week going into the Super Bowl. I mean, clear as day now, who the king is here. But I think we need to have a little bit more stock in that 20 years of greatness and realize that no one's going to touch this guy, no matter how good they are. Brady is the absolute king, and that was just a nice silver lining to that Super Bowl. And then lastly, the blueprint is getting the trenches resolved. We want to get the best players here, but we've got to get the trenches addressed. And clearly, Philly was case in point with a lot of that. They won that game right there in the trenches, and I think that's the big direction. Is we're all feeling pretty optimistic about where we're going now with Vrabel at the helm. But those are really my points today. A big shout out to the PFW Elite crew, Sean and Johnny from LA, both guys, longtime listeners. And just wanted to give a shout also to the old school callers, Chris from the TIN, Melvin, Eldred, Patty from Agawam, and Kat in Chicago. We need to hear more from you guys, and let's bring this show back. Let's go, Pat. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Chester. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's real quick, though. That's why I give Alex a shout-out for the newsletter. I mean, I feel like, trying to take not only those old callers and people who have been, part of the show forever, but, trying to bring even new listeners in and really trying to build that community. So it'll be out tomorrow, so make sure you sign up for the newsletter.
It's a good one.
Alex was giggling. She wouldn't let me see some stuff.
They were working hard on it.
They were
huddled over there.
They did not want me to see.
You can't see.
But you know what? Just to the call real quick, though. Yeah. I'm going to defend the wall. Like, and every Patriots fan should be.
I'm with him.
I'm not. Like, all last week we had to listen to Patrick Mahomes is in the conversation. It's not even close. And don't listen to Paul. They weren't talking about, his first 7 seasons versus Brady's. No, they were saying that if Mahomes three-peated, that he had a conversation or had a seat at the table as the greatest of all time, and he's not even close yet. So Patriots fans, take your victory lap
100%.
And stand your ground.
I'm with Evan. We literally have the answer to if MJ and LeBron played. Like, they literally played in the finals, and, like, Brady won, and then he stole another ring off his finger. It's just very frustrating.
Well, that's what it is. It's frustration
Yeah.
because we feel like it's such like a low IQ, just media fodder argument, right? Like just like Jordan versus LeBron is, but it's so frustrating to have to hear and be subjected to. So it does rile you up. But so I agree with both hands.
There's been no scandals, like just nothing. Like it's been smooth sailing for them. They get Brock Purdy, who decides to lay an egg in the Super Bowl. Jimmy G throws a duck in the last play of the game. Like, come on, we had 3 acts of God to beat Tom Brady. And it's very frustrating. So I'm with Evan on this one 100%.
I also disagree with him on Adam Vinatieri. Like, what more does a kicker could possibly do? He's got the most points in NFL history, the most field goals in NFL history,
the hardest kicks in NFL history,
the most clutch kicks in NFL history.
Can't ice him.
So if he's not going to make the Hall of Fame, then a kicker should never make the Hall of Fame. And I'm sure he'll get in eventually, but I think the frustration for me is that, there's favoritism to certain franchises with the Hall of Fame that these voters just typically gravitate towards, like the Packers, the Steelers, the Cowboys. Like, it's the same teams over and over again that always get their guys through. Even if it's not in a timely fashion, they like always get, like, Sterling Sharp getting in. Like, good player, but like, is he really, a guy that, thank God he got in? No, but he was a Green Bay Packer, and he was successful with the Packers. So eventually that type of guy is going to get in. And until the Patriots dynasty is on par with the other dynasties, the great dynasties in terms of volume of Hall of Famers, I'm going to continue to be pissed off about it.
He also tackled Herschel Walker, which I think would be a great Hall of Fame video highlight to put up there of not just a kicker, but a football player. And one other thing I would say is Bill Belichick, talking about that 2001 season, called Adam Vinatieri their best player. Our best player was going to try to make that last kick. I think that speaks volumes. So absolutely, it would have been a nice way for the NFL to send a message and be like, look, kickers get some disrespect, but this guy's the greatest kicker for a variety of reasons, not just the volume, played a long time. Yes, he picked up some stats, but also just the quality of the kicks. I mean, I don't have to tell the stories again about him hitting that kick in 2001 where Paul said you couldn't even see the other end of the stadium. The snow was coming down so hard. I mean, it's just those two kicks, crazy. So I'm sure he'll get in. I think it was he surpassed the voting level.
Just replace the voters with AI.
He'll definitely get in. And so I understand the point of that. But it's not just Vinatieri. Like, they can't even get Rodney in, and they can't even get him as a finalist this year. Like, he's not even on the ballot to get in. Guys like Teddy Bruschi,
what I'm saying. Human
Willie
bias.
McGinnis, Vince
Replace
Wilfork,
them with robots.
Like, those guys would all be, if those were 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers, they would have walked into the Hall of Fame. And now with the Patriots, it's like, no, we can't let those guys in. So this goes right up my butt. Like, I have a real issue with the Hall of Fame. I really just, cannot stand the Hall of Fame. I can't stand the voters. I can't stand the process.
I love it.
They have absolutely no transparency whatsoever. We have no idea who's voting and who's voting for what. And it's just it's an absolute joke. I'm sorry.
Thank God Eli didn't get in, though, first of all. I would have lost my mind if that happened.
That's true. Let's head back to the TPX hotline here with Eric in New Jersey. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey.
Good. I got just two. I just want to speak on two players here. I know we talk about variables and the culture that he wants to bring in, and you guys. I know you guys even mentioned Kendrick Bourne as a as a culture guy here, but I just don't. I just see the disconnect. I understand his teammates, players love him, but for him to be the quote unquote number one, and that leader in that room, for a guy that's like a 9-year veteran that was continuously out of position, even admitting post game conferences, he's in the wrong spot, he's in the wrong place. How is he supposed to be a guy that's supposed to be looked at? If you're going to bring the young guys into this, organization, into that room, and this is the guy that, cannot run the right route, get to the right spot. Kind of just want to speak on that. And then Christian Barmore, I think he's somewhat of a mythical dragon. I love him. Year 3 was great. Obviously, his past year with injuries, with his health concerns, but I mean, he's really have 1.5 seasons of production, and we're glamoring that defensive tackle isn't quite a need. Now, I'm not saying Mason Graham is the answer, but I think we need a little bit more attention brought to that position. And I'll take it off the line. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eric. I think Christian Barmore is one of the great unknowns of this offseason, and certainly, if you were to find out in May, oh, by the way, Christian Barmore can't play, and you'd passed on Mason Graham, maybe, that might look a little bit different. Hoping that he's able to come back. I think it's a key part. I think he fits the new style of defense that we believe they're going to play. But he's a key part. He's a key part of it, and it's hard to imagine this. You feel like you've already got one of the pieces on the defensive line that the previous caller talked about, trying to build that type of offense or defensive line that's so disruptive, and that's what Christian Barmore is when he's at his best. I just think for the Patriots defense to really take a step forward this year, they need Christian Barmore. It's hard to build from the bottom up with really nothing if you don't have him.
Yeah, I think maybe we're not giving enough airtime to the defensive line, but I feel like we are. Like I feel like we talk about it all the time, and it's not just defensive tackles. We talk about guys on the edge too. Abdul Carter. We talked about Mike Green in the last show.
Skirting.
It's a big need. It's a big need, especially. I would say like true defensive ends that can play all three downs, that are all-purpose players that can hold up against the run and can rush the passer. They seem to have gotten into that Belichick rotation of this guy's a pass rusher, that guy's a run defender. Devon Godshot, good player, but he's like a 40%, 50% down player. Joshua Uche, good player, but he can't play all three downs. And Bill was able to mix and match those types of guys and use them to their strengths. But you would like to be able to have guys that can play a little bit more in terms of their usage, like Christian Barmore, who can play in all situations. So I think it's a huge need, and it's a good class. So I hope that they hit it.
That's what I said about the Georgia kids. I mean,
You can't go wrong with the Georgia guys.
You really
No, just ask. That's kind of all Philly's philosophy. Georgia. Yeah. N'Kobe. Yeah.
They get a lot of credit for just going and downloading the consensus board and just like drafting all the brand names. They like to do that in Philly.
Let's take another call here on the TPX hotline before we take a quick lunch break. Patty and Agawam. Patty, you're back. What's up, man?
Hey, can everyone hear me today?
Yeah, we got you. Were you getting like robbed or something that last call, or was that not you?
No, that was me. I lost my head for a moment because like the first two calls failed. So I was back at my shop and got into a little mock scouting match with a couple of my coworkers.
All right, good. So I wasn't crazy because that's what I thought was. I'm like, what is going on? It sounds like you're in the middle of a battle.
It was innocuous, but like I told Nick Chester, like, if you guys had held me on for like another 5 seconds, I think I went on kind of like a pretty big profanity tirade. Like right after I checked my phone, like I was like, oh man, I got disconnected again.
Paul started giving you the all right, let's get him out of here. That's all right. What's going on today?
Yeah, but so just going back to last weekend, I'm going to end with a question, but going back to last weekend, I think I had a really good time Sunday. I took Monday off of work. I had such good of a time that I ended up with a big stain on one of my favorite Patriots shirts. Fred would be proud of me. But I think the biggest losers, to kind of parrot what Evan said, wasn't on the field. It was the friggin' Hall of Fame voters. I mean, the fact that Luke Kuechly and Adam Vinatieri didn't get in my opinion, being an NFL fan for almost 40 years is just ridiculous. And Eric Allen and Sterling Sharp, really? I mean, those guys were good, but were they Hall of Famers? I don't think so. So the question I wanted to throw out to you guys, if Vrabel ends up going with a four-man front, does Keon White play defensive tackle, or does he play defensive end? And I'll take it off there, guys.
Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd try him out at left defensive end. I think he struggles against tackles. I think he kind of was a one-trick pony rushing from the outside. You like him when he reduces inside on passing downs. That's probably his spot. So, it said that about Barmore. I think he can make up for some of Barmore if you were to lose Barmore. And I think him and Barmore together inside would be great. But I think I got real questions about how exactly he fits. And I don't know if he's that guy that Evan mentioned where we need a 3-down defensive end. I don't know if he's that guy. I'd give him a chance at that spot. I'd let him stand up a little bit too. But I think he has real questions about how he fits in as a 3-down player.
Yeah, like can he be a 4-3 end in a more aggressive front? Like maybe I could see that, especially down in a 3-point stance. He seems to generate more power and more explosiveness than when he's up on his feet for whatever reason. So maybe that helps. But I definitely think he's at his best rushing over guards on passing downs. That seems to be where he's at.
He's good at it. I mean, he's
good
legit good at it.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way.
Yeah, he might be the type of player that you want more in a rotation. Like if you can get somebody that can be a first and second down player, and then he only plays in passing situations, and that maybe that gets a little bit more out of him. Like maybe he's not a 75-70% snap usage type of guy.
I just look at that position. I don't think they have a real legit 4-3 defensive end on the roster. I mean, and maybe you could say Dietrich Wise is a free agent. Maybe you could say he could be one, I think, but I think we kind of know what he is at this point. He's, it's not like his game is going to jump to another level now because you're playing more of an even front. But it's a great question, and I think, again, this is a stat class, and that second pick to me, if you get Will Campbell up top, you take care of the tackle need, and you say, all right, we got a guy. Have some fun in that low 20s. Yep. I mean, some of these guys are gonna get through. Yep. All right, let's take one more call here from Dom in Virginia, and we're going to take a quick break. Hey, Dom.
Hey, am I on?
You're on. What's going on?
Okay, cool. Now, I feel like a fool because I hear that all the time when I'm listening to the show, and I always wonder why people do that, but I can understand now because it sounds a little bit different on this end. So I won't belabor that point. I just got a quick question to all of you when it comes to talking about giving Drake May some weapons. Talk about free agency, and I'll throw my caveat here. I apologize. I haven't listened at all this week due to work. It's my first opportunity. So I kind of want to just put out there the feelers when we talk about wide receivers is chatter about, well, not chatter, but reports that the Rams are looking to move on from Cooper Kupp. Debo, apparently, from 49ers looking to go. Are these anybody that you think would be good for the team? I know in the past we've taken some of the old heads, brought them on, and we've had some success, and we've had some failures along the way as well. Both are good players, but both have had their struggles over the past few years. So just wanted to float that. I'll take it off air and see what you guys think.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
I've heard what Evan said the past couple shows, and I'm with him. Just like, we don't need those aging receivers. We could have used Cooper Kupp and Mac Jones's last year. Or like Debo back then. Like, I just don't think the team is ready for a 31-year-old vet that's like, probably still wants to try to get a ring pretty soon. So.
Yeah, it just it baffles me that people want like a babysitter in the room, and they want that babysitter to be a $20 million a year player. Like, it's one thing to go out there and get somebody that you feel good about in terms of veteran leadership and stuff like that at a reasonable cost, but you're not paying Cooper Kupp $20 million to come hold Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk's hand. Yeah. Like, he's got to be doing more than just that for that kind of money. So that's only if they think he still has something in the tank and he's still going to contribute and he's still going to be like a top, a number one, low end number one, high end number two receiver, then that's one thing. But if you're just bringing him in for an adult in the room, then that contract's got to be restructured and reworked. And now you're getting into a situation where he's going to a team that's not competing for a Super Bowl for less money. Like, what's in it for Cooper Kupp now? Yeah. So like, it's a tough one for me, and I'd say the same with Debo. Like, to find, like, for both sides, like, what's the argument for both sides?
Yeah, I would say, and I kind of got a lukewarm take on this one in that, like, I'm not clamoring for those guys, but if they somehow worked it out and they wanted to come here, I just think with the position in the shape that it's in, they need bodies. And I would welcome a Cooper Kupp in that receiver room and setting the tone. And is he at the end? Probably. I'm not pounding the table for him, but I wouldn't be like, that's a terrible move. I look at it, I think they need two receivers. They need two legit receivers. And if one of them is, Chris Godwin coming off an injury, something like that, I get the arguments for, is he going to be with Drake in success? Well, they got to get the plane off the ground first. Before we talk about, like, the success and competing for championships, like, you got to get things moving. You need a receiver who can come in and give Drake that level of trust where when I need to throw the ball on 3rd and long, I know where he's going to be, and he's going to be there every time. It kind of goes back to what one of the last callers was saying about Kendrick Bourne, who I will just throw in, like, coming off an ACL last year. I give him a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of, like, let's see how it looks this year. Josh coming back. But, again, I still come from a place where we need two guys.
I agree. Like, if you're getting T. Higgins and Cooper Kupp, that changes your whole draft strategy because now you don't need to get Tet or maybe Travis if he's playing receivers. So I'm so sick of whiffing on receivers in the draft that I'd rather sign somebody in free agency, but just needs to be the right guy.
Yeah, that's what the appeal of Godwin is to me.
I just know how this works in this building a lot of the time, and if they're paying real money to a free agent wide receiver or a guy like Cooper Kupp, like, that's your move at wide receiver. Like, they're not going to then go out and trade for Cooper Kupp and sign T. Higgins, or trade for Cooper Kupp and draft Ted McMillan. Like, they're not going to put that many eggs into one position basket, I don't think. So if that's your move, then that's your move in a lot of ways at that position. So I just worry about that being their big move. I kind of like Godwin a little bit better because he's a little younger. And I just think he's got a little bit more left in the tank. I know he's coming off some injuries, but I feel like he's at least still 28 years old and has some juice left, and I could see him being a productive player still.
All right, we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
It's time for another episode of Pats from the Past podcast. Matt Smith here alongside with Paul Perillo, and we're pleased to be joined by former Patriots quarterback Matt Cassel. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Why are you here, Matt? What would bring you back to Foxborough?
What would bring me back to Foxborough is not just the people, the fans, but it's the tribute. Let's be honest. It's the tribute, the retirement ceremony for Tom Brady, and, you know, it was an incredible start to the ceremonies last night when we all got together, a bunch of teammates, old teammates, and familiar faces coming back. So we had a blast last night. We're looking to continue it tonight.
You're a busy man with a big family, with a lot of responsibilities and everything like that. So it's not the easiest thing to sort of, I'm going to drop everything I'm doing. But was it, and I'm sure, so I mean, I don't want to answer it for you, challenging, but was it an easy decision to make that I wanted to be here?
It was challenging, but it was definitely an easy decision to make. I mean, Tom's a close friend of mine. He's played an important role in my development when I was young, and throughout the years we've stayed close. And just the fact that we get an opportunity to celebrate him tonight and send him out in the proper fashion, it'll be a fun experience for everybody.
You talked about the event that you did on Tuesday night. Any particular teammate that maybe you hadn't seen and you were like, wow, it was great to catch up? I'm sure there were a lot of them, but someone individually that stood out?
You know, there's not one individual. The cool part about it is the thing that you miss most, and we talked about this, is when you leave the game, you miss that locker room. And you had Logan Mankins, Matt Light, Dan Copen, Lonnie Paxton, Kevin Falk, Deion Branch, all these guys that you've had these incredible experiences with, and we played together, we competed together. But to come back all and get into one room and be able to see those guys and pick up where we left off and tell funny stories and old jokes, that's what it's all about. And it's the camaraderie that you really don't experience in other walks of life, but you do in that locker room, and so it's pretty unique.
All right, let's start where it started in 2005. And here's a guy who played in one of the best programs in all of college football. You didn't get a chance to play a lot. What were your... What realistically, Matt, did you think was going to happen as you entered the draft that year?
Honestly, I was just hoping to catch on as a free agent and prove myself, maybe even get a practice, because my expectations were, hey, if I can get in, hopefully I can get a chance to prove myself. And throughout the process, I had a good pro day and all that stuff, and I had some workouts for about 5 different teams, and I just thought, you know, there is potential here that I will be a free agent somewhere. And then all of a sudden, that last day of the draft, I get a phone call. I was sitting down at my agency. He's like, look, free agency is going to happen quick. We got to be prepared. We're starting to field some phone calls from different teams. And next thing I know, Coach Belichick's on the line and saying, hey, Matt, welcome to the New England Patriots. We're going to take you next in the NFL draft. And my jaw just dropped. I kind of even had to ask him, are you messing with me? Because I didn't think it was realistic, right? I mean, for a guy that threw, I think it was 32 total passes in college, I backed up 2 Heisman Trophy winners, which probably, kind of helped me along the way in terms of the perception of who I could potentially be, but there wasn't any tape out there. And so the fact that they took a shot on me and gave me an opportunity, I'd be forever grateful.
So when you got drafted, we were still doing the newspaper back then, Matt. That's how long ago it was. But, I had your draft profile that year, and I called Pete Carroll, who was the head coach here, my first year working for Patriots.com, and I talked to Pete a little bit, and he gushed about how agonizing the decision was between you and Matt Leinart, and how you guys had sort of toggled back and forth, and, depending on the day that he woke up, he was convinced you were the guy.
Right.
And then it was him, and then it was you, and do you think that maybe Pete talked to a lot of NFL guys, maybe with his obviously extensive experience, and maybe that sort of helped give you a little bit of a push?
I absolutely think he had an influence on just the ability to know so many different people from a personnel standpoint. And then at the same time, I remember on the pro day before we started our pro day, he would go in and speak to all the scouts individually about each guy. And so I know that we always had a good relationship, and as agonizing as it was for him, it was more agonizing for me to sit there and have to wait and say, I can't, the week before season, getting called into that office and getting the devastating news that what you've been working for, you've been the backup for 3 years behind Carson. I felt like it was my time to go, and then to be told, look, we're going to go with Leinart to start, but if he falters at all, and he took off that first game like a rocket ship, and we go beat Auburn, and then I was like, man, what am I going to do? So I was stuck playing. I went and switched over, played a little tight end that year, played on special teams, did all these different things just because I wanted to play and be a part of it, but I was kind of stuck in that catch-22.
That's why Belichick drafted him.
Yeah, he's like, maybe he'll be on special teams. The more you can do.
Right.
The more you can do.
Okay, so you're here ostensibly, to help celebrate Tom's career. And so one of the big things that has happened throughout the years, a rookie comes in, you're in the room with him. What was your first impression when you met Tom?
I pretty much introduced myself in the weakest, nerdiest form and fashion. When he came up, I said, Mr. Brady, Matt Cassel. Because, it's an intimidating environment, right? And this guy just came off 3 Super Bowls. You don't know how to, normally you go up and say, hey, what's going on, man? Nice to meet you. I just completely geeked out. Went with a Mr. Brady. He's like, hey, bud, don't call me that. Call me Tommy. I was like, he might have me cut tomorrow based on the fact that he doesn't want to be in the room with somebody like that. But, no, he was incredible from the jump. I mean, we got in there, and then soon thereafter, as we started to get into the workouts that offseason, he's noticed that, look, I was one of those workout warriors too. I like to go in there. I like to work out. And he's like, hey, you want to work out with me? So he kind of took me under his wing at that point. And from that point on, for the next 4 years, we worked out every day with each other. We were in every meeting. But for me, it was just incredible to watch the professionalism day in and day out, and his leadership. And it was not just with his words, but it was with his actions. It's how he took care of himself. It's how he interacted with his teammates, how he treated one guy because he thought he could get the most out of this guy. Like Welker, for instance. He could yell at him all day long, and Welker would just continue to go. And then there's other guys that, maybe like a Randy Moss, that he'd sit there in the locker after practice and just have a general discussion about stuff, because how he approached people was different based on their personality and the relationships. So it was just a master class in being a professional quarterback, and then to watch what he did week in and week out was just astounding.
So you get to be part of that room with, the best that's ever done it, and you also get to be coached by a guy who a lot of people think is the best who's ever done it. What do you remember about Bill specifically? And I know Matt and I talk about that story that I think you talked about in the Dynasty documentary about him calling your mom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or threatening to call his mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
About being a dumbass because I missed the corner blitz.
Was that your rookie year?
That was my rookie year. Yeah, it was the last preseason game. I didn't see the weak corner blitz, which, hey, they were pretty sneaky about it. They disguised it well. But he definitely called me out in the meeting the next day. He's like, yeah, Matt, let's make sure we go through the fronts and check the corner blitz so I don't have to call your mom and tell her, dear Mrs. Cassel, we're sorry your son's in the hospital because he's a dumbass. And in front of the whole team, I was like, yep, I deserve that one. But Bill was incredible because he pushed you to limits that you didn't know that you could go, and he got the best out of each of his players. But I always respected about Bill was he had you better prepared for any situation, situationally speaking, and also just game readiness than I've ever been around. And part of that was even on Tuesdays, taking the time out of his day on a Tuesday, our off day, we'd come in, we'd meet with him, and you've probably heard the story. We sit down, go through every personnel on their defensive back end, safeties, corners, strengths, weaknesses, summarize who they are, then even maybe a potential matchup on linebackers. Talk about the defensive coordinator and also his lineage and where it came from. Then we'd watch film on all these guys. So by the time you came in on Wednesday, you're rolling. You understand why we're implementing certain pass schemes and concepts, who we're trying to attack on specific routes, who we're trying to take advantage of. And so you had this confidence going into game week, understanding why we're doing certain things. And there was never that, wait, what are we doing? And if there was, it was answered, right? And so, and the other thing I always appreciated about Bill was he was always held everybody to the same standard of accountability. It wasn't like, hey, if you're this guy and you're a big name, you're off limits. And I've been around that type of program before too. No, it was, look, if you're Tom Brady or if you're a free agent, it doesn't matter. If you've messed up, I'm going to call you out. We're going to correct it here. It might not be something that, everybody's cup of tea, like to sit there and get it in the meeting room, but at the same time, it set a level of expectation and a standard for everyone.
And now, great moments in history.
My point was like Alex was just saying that you couldn't imagine 2-8, and neither could have I. I couldn't have either, because I thought that at the very worst they would just
I'm starting to think I am negative. And I don't ever think of that.
But even you, Paul,
I don't think of that.
Wow.
But you said
really
7
big of
wins was
you.
their ceiling, right?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that. They're not gonna get to 7 wins.
But
like,
was
they're not
their
gonna
ceiling
get,
if everything fell in place?
Right.
In other words, if they stayed healthy,
right?
Everything fell in place.
Right,
Like,
but they're not
everything
even
was
gonna be
perfect.
close.
The other
They-
teams got hurt and you didn't. Like, maybe you could win 7 games. That's how I felt about this team.
I don't, but I don't necessarily disagree with that. If they're 2-8, Paul, like they're
Like,
gonna,
I thought they
if
would
they
lose
win
to the
4
Jets.
games, that's gonna be a lot.
I didn't think the offense could get worse than
I
last
didn't
year.
think that I would
That's-
co-sign on that.
But that's my.
I didn't think the offense
Yeah.
could be worse than it was. and
That's
it
my
is.
question. Is just I think we all kind of agree that like 6. I feel like we said a lot. Six wins feels like the floor for this team. Like he's too good a coach to not
Right.
get them 6
That's-
wins.
yeah.
Why aren't we to 6 wins this year? You know.
Yeah, I would have said.
I'm not ruling it out.
It's like, see, I would.
It's in the
See,
mix.
I'm
It's in play.
I know you think I'm probably lying, but I'm not either, Fred, because I think there's some teams that they could beat. Just like the last couple of games they played, they could have won.
Oh, that would be a big mistake.
That's another great moment from
Confidence. It's important to have when you're on the road. With Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan, you're riding on tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's roads may lead. Bridgestone, solutions for your journey, available now at Sullivan Tire. Alex, you could probably use a pair of those with the way you go through gas, your commute.
I recently did get some Bridgestone tires.
Oh, there you
and
go.
They've been
There you
smooth
go.
sailing ever
There-
since.
there you go.
I know there was like that stretch of I had to replace my tires twice within like 1 year.
Oh, my Lord.
That sucked.
You got too many miles. How many times do you fill up a week?
Depends on how many times I'm coming into the office, but it's every other day.
Oh, my Lord.
It's like at least
every other day.
Yeah.
You need to go electric.
I know. You
I had a hybrid too. I loved it.
It's electric.
I'll upgrade the RAV4 eventually to another RAV, like the plug-in hybrid RAV4, but
She's
not
got
yet.
a V8 Hummer now. It's really tough on the
Can you
tough on the
imagine
gas.
if I was like coming to work every day in a Suburban?
Well, Alex, let's stick with you because we have a question here
Ooh.
from a longtime listener, first-time emailer. Love the show.
Thank you.
This question is for Alex specifically. I'm a
Oh.
pilot for a legacy airline, and Alex raving about Guatemala inspired me to bid for trips with time in Guatemala City next month. Do you have anything you would recommend specifically in Guatemala City for one afternoon evening? Thanks for all you guys do. 413 represent.
Okay. Try out the coffee shops. I spent very minimal time in Guatemala City because it was kind of, you're just landing there and then you're going up to Antigua or El Paredon. But Coffee District, off the top of my head, is an awesome cafe, delicious food, amazing coffee. Like, I wish I brought more coffee beans back. But there's a great app called Source, and it's how I find good coffee shops, essentially. So download the app Source and just spend your time going to coffee shops in Guatemala City. It's a great time, great food.
You gonna go back
Yeah.
there someday? You gotta Seems like a
I'm
random
ready to
place
buy
try to
property down there. Yes.
Your parking lot?
It's probably affordable, I imagine. Yeah.
So there's a lot in El Paredon, right on the Pacific Ocean. 30 grand.
Retirement.
I could have a whole compound. Trust me, I've
Francisco
looked into
compound.
this.
Pablo Escobar.
I've looked. No, pop
they
up
do
like
Zillow out
a couple. Pop up a couple Airbnbs and.
Yeah.
Do they have
It's a good plan. Real estate.
Or like
that's,
a
that's where the real
hostel.
money is.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
guys know me.
seriously, like
That's the
Can it
first
be a
step in my
drug
real estate
kingpin?
empire.
You're right.
In Guatemala,
I don't know.
Coffee
people's
in person?
perceptions of Central America are very misguided.
It's a Hollywood issue.
It might be, yeah.
That's right.
You watch Narcos once and you're just
Yeah.
Right, just blanket. It's all.
Yeah.
Another email here. This one for Evan. For the most part, I trust Evan, but I think his take on Mason Graham at number 4 has some major flaws.
Oh.
We all agree that the biggest problem with the Patriots' defense is the front seven getting pushed around and generating no pressure.
So let's draft the guy that gets pushed
Hold, please. In Vrabel's defense, there is no role for a Belichick-style DT like Godshaw. And I don't know if I agree with that. And we cannot have another season with the Roy Farms Aquale Band-Aid. Mason Graham has the explosiveness to push the pocket, giving the edge and linebackers the ability to make more plays. Barmore already had trouble making it through a full season before the terrible situation last year. We have no idea what his future looks like. Get elite big boys. Lou from Philly. I mean, there's some good points there, I think, Ev. What do you think?
I'm not anti-Mason Graham. I just think that when you're drafting 4th overall, that is a franchise-altering pick. And I just want to make sure that you're getting a player that can make a franchise-altering impact. And I just don't know if he's that guy. You know, I listened to Dame Brugler on Paul's shows this morning talking about his top 100, and he said Mason Graham's a good prospect. He's not like a Quinnen Williams level prospect, but he's a good prospect. Like, I don't want just a good prospect at 4 overall. I want a great one. I like a lot about Mason Graham, but I just have reservations. I don't agree with everybody's assessment that he's a great run defender. I think he's a decent run defender. I don't think he's a great run defender. I think he has issues against double teams. He's got shorter arms. That's going to lead to issues with pressing blocks and creating separation from blocks at this level. So if you want to have a guy that's just going to shoot gaps and get up the field, then he's your guy. Like, if you want to do that all day long, then sure, that he can definitely do that. But if you want some more versatility there, I just worry about that. Now, in this draft class, there are a lot of guys that have flaws. Like, there's not a lot of perfect prospects in this class, and he's in that tier. Like, I put him on the tier of I would take him at 4. I just wouldn't be doing cartwheels if they took him at 4. That's all.
That's all. Jeffrey from Canada, Tuesday's show had a Chiefs Super Bowl loss kind of feeling to it, as in not good. Ouch. However, this kid's show will be good. I want to call out Paul. I know he's away, but him raining on our Chiefs loss parade was brutal. Well, that's what he does. I mean, come on. You knew exactly. That was he had there. You knew it was coming.
He's got to offset me.
That's why I read that email that was like, just a pure Patriots flex. Like, he will never, ever be as good as Tom Brady. That blowout loss was very good for Patriots Nation and protecting of our dynasty. It made Tom, Bill, and Gronk look even better. It also means the GOAT conversation is on a 2-year pause minimum. Mahomes is not going to play until he's 45. He just won't. I think his style of play has already been duplicated so much that he's regressing to the mean. Their defense is about to lose major pieces, and it's not as easy as all the talking heads make it sound to draft this and trade for that. That was Jeffrey from Canada chiming in from the wall.
I agree with him. It brought me so much joy. And Deuce, I told you this the other day. In 2007, the biggest thing that is etched in my mind is Brady got sacked. I think it was by Strahan, and he flexed. And at that point, you kind of just knew it's done. And it just brings me so much joy that there's a little kid in Kansas City who thought he was about to get a three-peat, and just Jalen Carter just mushed him in the face, and it's going to haunt him for 10 years, and that just brings so much joy to me.
Spoken like a true Drake fan.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Good. I don't know what that means.
There's
but
a little kid in Kansas City crying, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah, and I'm Eric Cartman licking up the tears. I love it. It was amazing.
Oh. What was the kid's name?
Scott Tenorman.
Scott Tenorman. Great episode. If you haven't seen that one, it's South Park. You got to cue it up. Hey, everyone. My name is Richard from Charleston, South Carolina. I've been a long-time listener.
Great city.
This is my first time sending an email. I have 2 questions for you. Thank you for emailing us first. Yeah. What's the best time to visit Gillette Stadium for a game? I've been to Gillette, but it was the off-season. And the second one, I'm proposing to my longtime girlfriend in Italy in a few weeks.
Ooh.
Any advice or tips you can share for the whole process? P.S. It's about honor. Thanks, Richard.
That's a good email. There you go.
Best time to visit Gillette Stadium for me, fall.
September.
You know, football weather.
Late September.
Unless you like the elements.
Yeah.
Late September.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Early
Like,
October.
You know, we get
October.
like the flex ticket thing, and like Jess always picks a game like late September, early October, somewhere along those lines. But it's still, you know, warm-ish. Like you're not gonna go.
Well,
and
this
freeze your
year
butt off.
especially, we got so lucky. I feel like every game,
Yeah.
September through October, was a beautiful, sunny, 75-degree day.
I almost passed out in the Seattle game. It was so hot.
Too hot.
Yeah, it was warm.
No, I think there's a sweet spot. October. It's great.
Yeah.
Great time. Great around here. Plenty to do. Go apple picking. Go pumpkin
See the trees.
picking. Ride a tractor trailer. I don't know.
Go
you
see
know.
the
you know
cranberry bobs.
Yeah. Maybe the Red
proposing.
Sox will still be playing.
Well, only one of us here is actually married and has proposed. So I don't know if you
Well,
guys.
you guys both
Actually, you did propose. That's right. You did
We're
propose.
both one for one.
One for
with
one.
proposals.
Good,
Yeah,
so
you
far.
didn't turn me down.
We'll
so
see.
It's good.
We'll
Great,
see.
yeah.
I would say my advice is, you know, just be careful of the ring. One thing I didn't think about, I proposed on the end of a jetty on Cape Cod, and I was like, as it was going on, I was like, this is a little dicey right now, because if this thing were to fall out of my hand, it's going down into the rock somewhere, and it's never going to be found. Other thing I would just say too is like, and every person is different with how they receive it, but like my wife, she was kind of like awkwardly laughing the whole time. Like I was expecting her to be like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited to touch," and she was just kind of like. And so I kind of wish that I had like kind of teed it up a little bit better, like you know, like so at least like she maybe had a hint that it was about to happen, but otherwise, no, congratulations, have a great time, Italy. I mean, if you screw that up, then
I know.
that's on you.
I would say that one of the best pieces of advice I proposed on Martha's Vineyard to Jess, as I'm sure everybody knows by now. We've talked about it enough. But I hired she wanted a photographer there to take pictures. And I hired someone that lives on the island and like knew the island really well and knew kind of the nooks and crannies and things like that. Especially if you're going to a foreign country, like trying to find somebody local that can help you and point you in the right direction of like, you know, this is maybe a good proposal spot, or like this is things that you could do afterwards and with pictures and things like that. That was a good piece of advice that I got, because the photographer that I hired, who was lived on the vineyard her whole life, like definitely made suggestions that I never would have thought of, you know, because I'm not
Angles,
local
lighting,
to the
timing.
island. Yeah.
See, the golden hour, was this like a 4:30 proposal?
No, it was like right between dinner time and like sunset.
Where in
like,
Aquina?
No, we did it on Lighthouse Beach in Eggertown, because Aquina was just too complicated because it's so far away from everything else. So plus the dog had to be there, obviously. So there's a whole beach situation with that too. But that would be my one recommendation, is to try to reach out to some people that
Get an Italian photographer somewhere over there, knows the angles, the lighting, the spots. I like this email, little Fred and Paul action here. Hey guys, just want to chime in and say how much I love the arguments between Fred and Paul. Why?
Don't we all?
Because it's the only time I get to listen to two people I like argue and root for both of them, because they haven't realized that they're arguing the same point. Paul will give some well thought out points that back Fred, while Fred will point out what people are saying and it backs Paul. When asked who those people are, Fred can't give a coherent response. In the meantime, Deuce will crack a joke in the background that makes me laugh out loud, but that goes totally unnoticed by Fred or Paul. Eventually, the screaming match stops when they realize they actually agree with each other. I also want to say how impressed I've been with Vrabel. I was expecting a meathead coach somewhat in the Dan Campbell mold, but I've been pleasantly surprised with how cerebral he sounds. In every interview, he pauses before he answers any questions and gives a deep, thoughtful, and sincere response. It's so different from the meaningless coach speak I've become accustomed to. Vrabel sounds in real life like what Eric sounded like in his own head. And lastly, a little shot at Eric there. I mean, come on, no email complete. Last, I want to become a ball knower like Evan. Would it be possible for him to give a 2 or 3 minute segment in each show where he explains some ball knowing concept, like what power run is or what pin pull is? It could be accompanied by a sweet jingle, and Deuce can throw in some double entendres about ball knowing. Love the show, especially in the offseason, Andrew in Coronado, California. Thank you for that email. That's really great. And yeah, we do have some little film stuff in the work for you with the draft and stuff.
Yeah.
And we did a little bit of that this year. We hope to continue to expand it.
We've discussed, and maybe we can do an audience feel here. We've discussed doing intro to football style videos in the past of me breaking down like some of the more simple concepts, like things that you guys could like recognize on TV if I like explained it to you as best as I could. So we've discussed it, but I just think it's hard to find the right time to shoot those, release those, and stuff like that. But I agree with his point about Vrabel, though. I definitely was, even that first time we spoke to him on here when he came on the show when on the day on his intro presser day, his like cerebralness is a perfect way to put it. Took me by surprise. Like I thought we were gonna get sort of like a rah meathead Dan Campbell style coach as well, and he's definitely not that. Like he's a smart dude.
Quick shout out to Andre from Costa Rica. It's his birthday. Happy birthday! He thinks this podcast is the best of all. Of course, you're right. Let's hop back over here to the TPX hotline. Check in with Randy in Providence. Hey, Randy.
Hi. I wanted to ask you about a draft scenario and then like about 3 specific day 2 prospects. I wonder what you guys think about, there's 2 kind of blue chip prospects that everybody thinks with Carter and Hunter, and then 2 quarterbacks that would make me think that there could be some value in the 4th pick, maybe trading back to like the 10, 11, 12 range, and being able to target, one of those tackles that you guys talked about earlier, Simmons and Connerly. And he had mentioned they'd be off the board by the 2nd round pick. And I think there are 3 guys that are day 2 prospects that could be contributors maybe. Anthony Belton out of NC State. He looked real good at the Senior Bowl. Holland Pierce out of Rutgers, 6'8", 350, started like 40-something games at left tackle for them. And then a local kid, Ozzy Trapillo out of BC. So I want to know what you guys think about that draft scenario, that trade scenario maybe. I think 10, 11, 12 because like Chicago's got the extra 2nd round pick. Yeah. And then about those 3 day 2 prospects.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the Rutgers kid yet, but with Belton, like wide body tackle, built kind of more like an interior player, but has the length to stick a tackle in the league. I liked what I saw out of him. I think you worry a little bit about foot speed and pass protection and things with guys that are built like that. With Trapillo, I know he's got a lot of love because he's a BC guy. Dante Scarnecchia worked with him a little bit off to the side there and trained with him a little. I thought he played a little tall. Knee bend and flexibility I thought were a bit of concerns, like some of those really bendy rushers I think he's going to have problems with. But I think those 2 guys are sort of in that like Caden Wallace bucket of like at worst maybe swing tackles, guys that could be top backups, at best starting caliber guys. But I wouldn't say like those guys are now we have left tackle figured out. Like we drafted Anthony Belton in the 3rd round and we're done. I think that those guys are still more in that like Wallace type of category.
I think my ideal scenario might be if Hunter and Carter are gone, trade down a little bit, still draft Will Campbell, pick up an extra top 50 to 100 pick.
Yeah.
And be able to hammer the defense and get one of these, 3rd round receivers, somebody with some juice down there. To me right now, if those 2 guys, that sounds the most appealing to me, but
I think the issue is that sounds appealing to everybody, right? Like that scenario, I think, is what a lot of teams are talking about in this draft, because in most drafts, like this draft would start at like the 6th or 7th overall pick because there would be like 5 guys in front of them that are pushing everybody else down. Yeah. So everybody wants to trade down. Mm-hmm. So now like it's a situation of like, can you get the value in a trade down and can you get a team to bite on a trade down? Because I don't know how many teams are going to be clamoring to go up.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of teams clamoring to go down. So look at last year when 3 quarterbacks fly off the board 1, 2, 3. Now all of a sudden the Alts and the Neighborses and the Dunzes, like those guys now go 5 to 10 instead of going 1 through 5. So that's the tough part about this draft.
Let's head out to LA, my old stomping grounds. Christian. Hey, Christian.
Hey, you guys, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Okay, yeah, I'm doing okay. It's raining out in LA. 2 or 3 weeks too late, but it's raining pretty hard. So thank you, Mother Nature, but whatever. Now we got a bunch of mudslides that we're all worried about.
Oh, boy.
But other than that, life is still good here in L.A. Guys, yes, of course, I want to trumpet Travis Hunter and the fact that I think the main reason Kansas City lost is Patrick Mahomes had no way to go with the ball, even with experienced wideouts like Hopkins and Kelsey. To me, the front four gets home because they have excellent coverage. So putting Hunter on the team, pairing him with Gonzalez equals excellent coverage, which might just help a front four with a free agent to get home. That's one thing. Second thing is, could you guys give me 3 picks and 2 free agents that you feel would equate to 10 wins? Because I'm not really interested in a 3-win bump or a 2-win bump, whatever. I want a quantum leap like Washington did to go to 10 wins. I'll take it off air, guys.
Thanks, Christian. Where do you start? How about let's just go like crazy. Let's say Ronnie Stanley. You go grab Ronnie Stanley as your left tackle. You grab T. Higgins. Boom. You know, like I mean, you get all the big fish, and then you supplement that with whoever you want really in the draft. I feel like, but I mean, if you take care of those positions and maybe round out the deal. Let's say offense in free agency with the left tackle spot. Grab a elite wide receiver. Just one. And then you get to the draft and you say, all right, we're going defense. We're going to really, try to get some of these front 7 guys that are disruptive and that make impacts and that fit this defense. And then who knows? Maybe. And then, I mean, I think it all really, no matter who you add, it comes down to Drake May and Josh McDaniels really popping together.
It's a big thing with the Commanders is they got the coaches they wanted, and we so far have that on paper. So see how it goes.
Yeah. To the point about the coverage in the pass rush. That is an age-old nerd debate that you can come in on, Christian, because we've debated which one's more important and which one funnels to which one for as long as I've been doing this. And I think what's really cool about some of the things that Bill used to do is like he would go against the grain with the trend. So like when everybody was buying pass rush, he bought Stephon Gilmore, right? And like when everybody started buying corners, then he would pivot to pass rushers and go sign Matthew Judon. So like these ebbs and flows and stuff like that when it comes to pass rusher coverage debates is kind of a cool thing to track across the league. And the league is always copycat. So a team like Philly wins the Super Bowl building it with the front 7 out. Now everybody's going to want to build it from the front 7 out. So what would Bill do? He'd go sign all the corners, right? So it depends on which way you want to look at it.
Ben in Liverpool, he's got a suggestion here for the newsletter. He said, loving the newsletter, but I have a suggestion for something that could be added to it. In addition to email of the week, I'd love it if you could also did idiot of the week. This could come in the form of email, phone call, or even something that one of you guys says on air. I definitely think I would be on the idiot of the week a couple times, but that's something to think about. I don't know if we need to be
I think it's funny. I would be hesitant to have our listeners and our callers be labeled by that. I don't want to disrespect you guys.
I know. Well,
it's too nice of you.
But we do want to do the guess the caller game this offseason where we're going to get hopefully pictures of popular callers, people who call in a lot, and we try to guess who's what. Like we got Todd, North Carolina. We get to you in a second, Todd, but what does Todd from North Carolina look like? We know their voices. But it'd be pretty fun. Christian LA, another
Maybe that's the avenue too for like an
Name that caller.
an Evansplaining segment. Like maybe you can't get a 3-minute show series off the ground right away, but just a little newsletter segment every other week.
Absolutely.
There you go. Oh, that's
here
it.
You pick a glossary term and
with-
just
film
go
room
in
with
on
Evan,
it.
right.
Maybe we could do like little glossary, like a little like definition,
Yeah.
Like
or
it's
even
like
if it's just me getting
football
iPhone
terms.
footage of you upstairs at the whiteboard, like breaking something down, putting it on YouTube Shorts.
Sounds exciting. That'd be really fun. Let's actually go down to Todd in North Carolina. Hey, Todd, how's Bill doing down there? You keeping tabs on him?
Oh, Bill is here, and a lot of people are excited for him now to play against Ohio and somebody who's going to try to build a defense to stop Bill. So it'd be interesting. It's a great show without the octogenarians. I'm really appreciative of this, just to quote our new coach. What I'm looking for is, what do you think, what is your ratio in your mind for hits to potential wins? I know our Los Angeles friend just kind of stole my thunder because that's exactly my question. How many people are we going to have to hit on to make, say, be around 500? How many people are we going to have to hit on to be, competitive, maybe even make the playoffs? And that's kind of what I'm wondering now, because I'm hearing a lot of different things from different sources about just how many needs there are. And from you guys, from just doing a brief analysis of what you said, I think there's about 5 to 6 players that we need to hit on to be maybe even to get to 500. So I just want to hear what you guys think about that. Thanks, and great show, guys.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
I don't know, it's tough to say, right? Like I don't know exactly how to answer that because it's hard to say because it can happen quickly. Like there's proof that it's happened quickly in other places. The Chargers, the Commanders, they both just made the playoffs after picking in the top 5, just like the Patriots the year before. So it can be done quickly. It's just I think a lot of it is like coaching the talent that's currently on the roster.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it is like, can they get the defense back to level? Like, can Mike Vrabel get this defense back to where it was in 22 and 23 and closer to that defense just by organically, from within being a better coached unit and a more fundamentally sound unit? I don't know. I don't know how many players it could take or wouldn't take. I think, it's kind of hard to say, but
I'd just say I think let's just say 2. I feel like they need at least 2 guys to come in and really. But to me, again, the biggest thing is Drake. Like you don't need 12 awesome new additions if Drake May takes a huge step forward in his progress, and Josh is in his bag and really identifies what he wants to do with him, and they're able to execute it. And all of a sudden, Kendrick Bourne looks a little better. I think to your point, Evan, I think they were better than their talent. Their talent is better than what they put on the field last year, I think. And that's, of course, an indictment on what the coaching was last year. But still, I think most position groups play below what you thought. And a lot of the guys that you re-signed, you've seen better out of Michael Onwenu. You've seen better out of Ramondre Stevenson. And those guys regress. So I think that colors a lot of what we're talking about here. And while I mentioned Ramondre, just Brandon and Maine, thank you for your 3 emails today. I'm going to get to one of them. But I appreciate the questions, and I think I have been reading them, and usually when we touch on stuff, I can't read every email, but I think we've touched on some of their stuff. But with Ramondre, he says, I don't hear many acknowledging this, but I think the Ramondre extension was a mistake. Why did the Patriots pay and extend such a mid running back? Putting aside the fumbling this year over his career, his best season was barely cracking 1,000 yards in 17 games, no less, with just under 70 receptions. Well, that's still 70 receptions, pretty good. And this was an offense where we had regression Mac Jones, and the best wide receiver was an undrafted college QB in Jacoby Myers. So he was overly used out of necessity, not talent. I'm fairly certain each of you could name at least a dozen RBs you would take over Ramondre. I was able to name 18 and felt like I was being generous. I would just say to this, I'm really interested to see what Mike Vrabel does with Ramondre to get him back on the program. And the fumbling is a huge issue. And to me, that's something that Mike Vrabel will not be forgiving of. He will not be like, well, just go ahead and get back out there like they kind of were last year with him. Huge story in camp. And I would say, I know a lot of people praise this running back class a little bit.
Yep.
That's another spot where do you put another guy in the pipeline? I kind of like Antonio Gibson. I think, he could maybe fit what they do. But I wouldn't roll that position out in the draft.
I didn't like the deal at the time. So, I mean, you're preaching to the choir now. That's more of like a running back thing for me than it was about specifically with Ramondre Stevenson. But I'd be wary of paying any running back a second contract, let alone a guy like Ramondre, who I think is good but not great. So, we'll see. I couldn't agree more with the draft, though. But this is a loaded draft class at running back, one of the real strengths of the draft on the offensive side of the ball. So there's probably going to be 20 guys that are drafted in this class that are going to be contributors in some capacity at the next level. So even if it's like 3rd, 4th round, I think you can still get somebody that at least can be involved in the committee of running backs, maybe not like a lead back, but someone that can be involved in an offense. And now it's just a matter of what type of running back do you want it to be? Do you want it to be more of like a scat back? Do you want a power back? Like which direction do you want to go? Because there's so many options that now it comes down to just picking your guy and picking the skill set.
You can also get a running back at any point in the draft. Just there's so many options. But I mean, Ramondre, the fumbling issues on the newer side, so you kind of hope he cleans that up. But
I mean, do you put any stock in Derrick Henry? I mean, I know Derrick Henry, I believe, was there before Vrabel actually got there, but do you put any stock in him looking maybe a little bit more at like Braylon Allen last year, that kind of big bruising, not shifty, but it seemed like Vrabel kind of wanted to have a big bruising back and a little shifty back when they, went and got Lewis. Like, maybe that's their thing. Maybe they do want to go back to that. I know Josh will have some say in that, of course, as well.
Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to do with Gibson, who I actually think it could be a pretty decent running back for Josh McDaniels. I still look at Gibson as a guy that can contribute in the passing game and can get open on linebackers and do that sort of thing. The James White, of it all. I think he can still be that kind of player. So I'm interested to see what they do with Antonio Gibson. But with Ramondre, I mean, he's on the team for at least another year, probably 2 with that contract. So they just got to figure out a way to make it work with him, kind of.
All right. Elle from Wisconsin has just a music recommendation for halftimes that they think would solve all the problems. One man who can promote all genres of music and who has no baggage or hate against him, Weird Al Yankovic. What do you think? Is your generation even aware of Weird Al Yankovic?
Yes, but like loosely. Definitely.
The movie came out last year.
That was definitely towards the younger side of my life. But yes,
like first discovering YouTube.
Yeah.
Who else can perform? I mean, who have they not had at this point? There's so
Taylor Swift.
I feel like that's it, honestly. And then the Swifties would just take over the Super Bowl.
Well, unless they went back and got some of the bands like
like the Chili Peppers or something.
The Chili Peppers did it.
When?
Did
I think they might have.
They definitely did it.
Okay.
Might have been one of
but
ours.
yeah, I think the Super Bowl next year is it Vegas next year? So that
San Francisco.
San Francisco. So I think a lot of people are saying I think Metallica might be from San Francisco or something so those types of bands.
Yeah.
So this is your side of the street.
I know. You're speaking my language right here. I enjoy it.
I don't know the name of these bands. You do so.
No. I got the one with I'm fat. He did the fat one where he did Bad by Michael Jackson. I was all in on that album. I think I was like this is not something you guys do, but back in the day you'd have Columbia Tape House and you'd be like, send us 99 cents, we'll send you 8 tapes, and then over the next 6 months you have to buy 5
Columbia
more tapes
Tape
at
House
full
could
price.
sound like something else. Dude.
But people used to scam it, especially when I was away at prep school. Kids would sign up for it, and they'd put a fake name on it, and then they'd work in the mailroom, so they'd grab the CDs. And it was like the things we had to do before your Napster and your LimeWire,
Strawberry,
all of these things.
Chili Peppers did the MetLife one, and remember they had to unplug it because it was so windy. So
I just looked that up. You're right. It was the pre-recorded drama.
Yep.
Weird Al was Gangster's Paradise, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the one I knew.
Well, guys, football season may be over, but you can still score major style points this President's Day weekend at Bob's Discount Furniture. Get better sleep than ever with the affordable luxury of a Bobapedic mattress. Customize your living room with a modular sectional, or kick back with the latest tech on Bob's reclining furniture. We're talking Bluetooth speakers, wireless charging, power reclining seats. See how much you can save this President's Day weekend at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. And with that, guys, I'd like to first. I'm going to tee this up here before I play a clip of our of the 2004 podcast that'll be coming out next week. And ESPN just put out a ranking. It was actually by Aaron Schatz, who created our DVOA, which I think we all appreciate that. And I actually spoke with Aaron for this podcast because they ranked out, I think it's the top, top 59 Super Bowl winners. And the Patriots kind of disrespected here. 2001 was 57. 2018 was 50th. This is the one I got the biggest problem with. 2003 was 47th. That was a really good football team. 2014 was 42. 2016 was 37. But 2004, 7th overall. DVOA loves these Patriots. It was a great team. I think everybody kind of agrees that this was, the best Patriots team of the dynasty. I know we could talk about, if you get down to brass tacks and the 07 team had to play the 04 team, how might it have gone? But just wanted to share a quick clip here with you guys from the podcast that'll be coming out Monday. This is Matt Patricia. This was his first year. He came into the NFL as an offensive assistant, coaching with Dante Scarnecchia. And here's what Matt Patricia had to say just about that Patriots defense that I think was, one of the greatest defenses of all time. The Patriots had built a veteran defense that was in its prime. Coming off a 2003 season in which they ranked first in the NFL in points, this group had game-changing talent on all 3 levels. The only question was how good this defense could be. Matt Patricia, offensive assistant.
Those guys were so competitive. It was a room full of alphas. Every single one of them. So, I would walk in the linebacker room, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to be coaching football or fighting. I was like, okay, well, maybe we might be fighting today. I have no idea what's going to happen. You would literally walk in and, Willie McGinnis would walk by Izzo and he'd just walk by and be like, yep, you're dry. I got the edge on you today. And they were talking about hydration, and so now Larry's in the back of the room chugging waters. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, he's not going to be more hydrated than I am. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? This is what we're, or, Brood walk in with a book. They didn't carry their playbooks because they knew the playbook. He'd walk in with a regular book, and he'd be like, "What are you doing?" He's like, I read 2 books last night, just trying to edge. It was like, you guys are insane. You're insane. But competitive, worked hard. When we brought everybody back for OTAs, and we still had that first practice, I just remember the noise of the defense the communication, but it was just it was so loud, so clean, so clear, so just like locked in focus. It just sounded like a machine, and you were like, wow, like these guys are unreal. And I remember, with Vrabes too, the one thing that was amazing to me about Mike Vrabel, you're in college football world, and every year it was like, hey, we got to get to training camp to get in shape. I just felt with these guys, like you could have called them any month. You could have called them in April, and they would have been able to play a 3-hour football game at the highest level. They were always in shape. Mike Vrabel was he was never out of shape. It was just amazing to me, the level of professionalism that these guys held each other to and they held themselves to.
Yeah, so there it is. That's episode 1, 3 episodes. So the first one kind of covers the preseason, training camp leading up, regular season, and then the playoffs and a little reflection. So hope you guys will check that out. Matty P was great, as you probably heard him now. And, of course, now he's the new Ohio State defensive coordinator. So we'll see. Kind of felt like he needed a break, though. He seemed like, man, we joke about coaches working long hours and putting time in. And from talking to Matt Patricia, it sounds like he was like person A1 who was here way too much and never left and never saw his family and just put everything he had into this job. So hopefully this year off did him a little bit of good. But hope you guys check that podcast out here as we round down the final 15 minutes or so here. Just wanted to read this one email from Adam in Louisiana. He said, what does success look like to y'all for the Patriots next season? What is the cutoff of wins that you would say that this season was a failure? I think anything under 7 wins is a failure of a season. Not enough to fire Vrabel, but definitely a reason for concern. What do you guys think?
I think 7's on the dot, maybe like 8. I don't know. Like there were so many games this year that you feel like could have went the other way. So the team should be better next year with better coaching, I feel like. So anything under 7's a disappointment to me.
It's funny how like you got to see it. Like Paul's big on that. Like you got to show me what it looks like, because some of the games from last year, you hear players kind of being like, we lost 6 one-score games. Well, I mean, yeah, technically, but
Chiefs won.
Were you really in it? Like, were you really in it? I don't know. But I think you're gonna know when you see it. I think that to me, and that's just the vibe I get from talking to Vrabel a little bit here, and just. Like we were saying earlier, he just seems like he knows what he's doing. He's got a plan. He learned from what he did in his first coaching experience. He took a year to maybe even step back a little bit and really hone in on what am I going to do when this next opportunity comes. I mean, I saw a league poll. I'm not sure who put it out, but the Patriots hiring of Vrabel was like by far the most liked move of the offseason in terms of head coaching. So I love the move, but you guys know it's the NFL. You never know. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out, and this team is going to be the team that I think it should be in the model of Mike Vrabel and the style of a smart, tough football player that he was. But that being said, I think 6-7 wins is about where you feel like this team will be back, and let's start making some noise next year.
It's tough because you don't want to turn into the toxic Pats fan, look at the other teams, but then you look at the schedule. Play the Jets twice.
Oh, I know. The schedule.
Well, it's like Vrabel said, we have to take advantage of bad football. So I guess that's the first
Saints have a new coach. You don't know who their quarterback's going to be. So you can get there. That's why I think anything under 7 is pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I always have a tough time putting win totals.
Because it's not black and white.
And we have such a long way to go in terms of the roster building aspect of it. Like after the draft, I feel like we'll have a better idea of what's realistic.
If we readdress this, I think after free agency and after the draft, maybe right before preseason, you can address more of those intangibles.
In a month, if they have Josh Sweat and T. Higgins on this team, then I'm obviously going to feel a lot better than I do right now.
Go higher than 7.
But I'm going to have a pretty high standard, I feel like, for this team, because I have seen it done in other places. Not necessarily go all the way to the NFC Championship game like the Commanders did, but you see quick turnarounds in the league happen more often than not, especially when you have the quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this team should be in it towards the end of the season. I don't think that they should have irrelevant games post-Thanksgiving like we've had the last couple of years. I shouldn't be watching draft film for the 2026 draft on Thanksgiving, right? We should be able to wait for that until January this time around. That, I feel like they should have relevant, competitive football games down the stretch this coming up season and be in the mix. Now, will they make the playoffs? It's probably lofty, but they should be vying for the 7th, seed, the final wild card spot. You're 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in that category.
Ooh, got me excited there, Evan, for a second.
Whew.
in the mix for the playoffs.
Should be.
Let's head back to TPX hotline. Steven is in Pasadena. Another call from LA. Hey, Steven, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Big fan. I wanted to touch a little bit on the emailer about Guatemala. I lived there for 11 years and actually graduated high school there. But anyway, recommendations. It's like 30 minutes away from the Guatemalan airport. It's called Cayala. It's very nice. It's like a promenade, and there's even a hotel there. But they have like Starbucks and other coffee shops, bars, the whole thing. So that should be a good time. And for Alex, next time you go, there's this place called Lake Atitlan.
Oh, I'm familiar.
It's one of the most beautiful lakes.
Yup, bucket list.
And it's surrounded by 3 volcanoes. So you rent an Airbnb there. It's going to be a pretty good time. So that's it. One thing about the Patriots I did want to touch on is I just read that Travis Hunter is going to work out at the combine as a defensive back. So does that change the strategy? Would you still take him and convince him, or what would you do if you were the Pats? That's it, guys. Big fan. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks, Steven. Yeah, that came out this morning that he was listed with the defensive backs. It's an interesting little wrinkle. Usually they do try to, there's like a committee that decides who gets invited to the combine. And usually the committee will give advice to draft prospects like, maybe go back. You're not ready and you're not going to get drafted where you want to go, or you are ready as an underclassman to enter, and doesn't usually come down to which position a guy's going to play. Usually that's pretty cut and dry, but they're obviously saying that the NFL zeitgeist is calling him a corner. And so I do think that changes a little bit of how I would view him as a Patriot prospect. I still think he's a good enough corner to draft him in the top 4, but we get into the whole positional value and needs and all that kind of stuff, and it's not a need. It's not a glaring need like some of the other things. So I do think you have to consider it.
Claire checking in from West Midlands, UK. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hey, girl.
She just wanted to say, just throw a quick note in and say, nice job by Deuce and the kids. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks,
I love you all at PU Ovs, but whilst the grown-ups are away, you younguns are doing good. And I know it's not till tomorrow, but happy Valentine's Day. You lovely lot. So they celebrate Valentine's Day in England, too.
Apparently.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a worldwide holiday. You guys got any plans, Tease? What do you got for
I'm
your special lady?
I'm slacking a little. So.
Oh, no.
No, I got some.
Well, this is your first Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, I got
It's
something up
you're
my sleeve.
slacking on your first Valentine's
No, well,
Day.
last year I asked her on a date, completely forgetting it was
That was
Valentine's
really funny.
Day, and then all the girls were like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "It's Valentine's Day."
We were like, now you got to date her
Yeah,
for real.
and here I
You
am.
did.
Here I am a year later. So.
Did you at least get the flowers taken care of?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all right.
At least you're not
Got
going
the reservation?
I'm cooking.
Okay.
At least you're not going to break up with her. There was some talk, another relationship that might
Oh my
end
God, that was
unceremoniously tomorrow. Alex, you got anything? Oh, you're doing a spa?
Yeah,
so-
Gonna go to Canyon Ranch.
Yeah.
Out in the Berkshires.
Getaway.
Bougie spa weekend.
Evan, was this your last Valentine's Day before you're officially
Yes,
pitched?
that is true. So like once you get married, can I take it off? Like am I
No.
No?
No, this is what
It's too close to the holidays. I feel like I just feel like.
Well, Jess's birthday is the
Well,
day
yeah, I was
before.
gonna give it a
Oh.
shout out. I doubt she's listening, but if she is, happy birthday!
Happy birthday,
to
Jess.
my much better half, and it's
Much
her
better.
birthday today, and then Valentine's Day tomorrow. So it's a tough back-to-back
Expensive
in
weekend.
the Lazar household. So
Lane and I we're coming up on our 18th wedding anniversary. So our thing is we just she'll look at me like, so are we doing anything for each other for Valentine's Day? Like, she's like, because I got to put an Amazon order in if not. But no, you gotta keep the magic alive, Evan. Just, you gotta find a way.
So you go to dinner with your kids.
You gotta,
right?
I know we're going to dinner with our kids. Well, as I
Keep it
said,
alive.
they were made by our love. So I figure we should all go together and. No Valentine's up in the office though today. No, we're not doing any of that stuff. No trading.
Secret Valentine's.
Well, it's tomorrow. Maybe there is.
Oh, maybe.
Some cards in you guys' cards and candy.
Candy.
Something going
from
in.
Megan's Candy Bowl.
Yeah. Okay, real quick. I thought of something during that clip. The Killers
Oh.
Yeah.
haven't done a Super Bowl.
Okay.
I feel
Open
like,
with Mr. Brightside.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Maybe close with when we were young. What's the other
good. Oh, they
song
got
that I love?
Somebody told
All those things I've done.
Told me that
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They got a good. They
Killers.
got a few. I think it's pretty good. I mean, that's rock genre.
Right, you're talking about like bands that have anthems and stuff that can
Yeah.
really get
Yeah.
the stadium juices
I feel
going.
like Mr. Brightside is bigger than ever now than it even was when it came out.
Why? Is it hot on the TikTok all of a sudden again?
The weddings.
Weddings, sports games.
Sports is big, and right now, like the Brightside sing-alongs and stuff. I
And
definitely
that's not
think
even their
that's
best song to me.
It's a good one because like you either have to go the anthem rock band route that like plays stadiums and like knows that sort of thing, or I feel like you have to go with like a performer.
Has Mariah Carey done one?
That's a dancer and all that kind
Mariah
of stuff.
Carey would kill it.
Does she still have the pipes like that?
Oh yeah. I'd be jamming out to Mariah Carey on the way to work.
I got a killer song, underrated. They did a recent album, Pressure Machine, is a song that they did that I really liked. It's a little bit. It's totally not the Killers that you're talking about, not Super Bowl Killers, but actually I did when I worked Boston Calling. They performed there, and kind of high maintenance. They needed people to be shot certain ways, and so but they're familiar with the festival crowd, so I like it.
They had some songs on Guitar Hero that will connect with the young kids.
Oh, Guitar Hero.
And all these things I've done is just like one of my favorite songs in general. So
yeah, that's a good one. Good one, Alex.
Deuce, nobody went to that Boston Calling for the Killers. They went for Eminem.
Oh right, well yeah.
Deuce, how dare you?
See now Eminem closed it out, and obviously, but as a member of the crew, like I was working.
Spit on my face. I was so close.
Oh really? Oh, you were there? I thought you looked.
Maddie would have never washed his face again.
He saved it in a Ziploc bag.
He has it in a vial somewhere.
It's funny you say that, Matt, because so as I was part of the video crew, that was the last show. And we had to start breaking things down. And I've never been a Marine. I've never been to Parris Island. I've never done Navy SEAL training. But if there was a night in my life that I had, like the hardest night of my life, it was that night because we had to break down everything that night. It was raining, if I don't know if you recall. It was raining. We're pulling cable under stages and in mud. And I just reached a point where I was like delirious, like just rolling cable. I'm like, I don't know where I am. It was like, 4 or 5 in the morning. We've been like trying to break everything down. One of the hardest nights of my life. But yeah, that's my. I just remember flying in the golf cart, starting cleanup, and hearing Eminem go and be like, "It'd be kind of cool to listen to this right now." And they're like,
did you hear
dude.
M or did you hear Drunk Maddie?
I heard you. No, I saw you the drunk tank afterwards.
Maddie just crowd
something
surfing.
from the real Slim Shady.
Yeah. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us here on Patriots Unfiltered. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Don't worry, Paul and Fred will be back next week, and we'll see you then. So thanks, though. We'll see you then.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
The world's original